The rain hammers against the penthouse windows as she stares at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. Two pink lines, a miracle at 45, dinner warming in the oven, champagne chilling, rose petals scattered across the table. The perfect setting to share perfect news. Then the door opens, and the stranger wearing her husband's face delivers the blow that will shatter her world. Pack your things. I want you out by tomorrow. Some betrayals cut so deep they alter the architecture of your soul. Some falls are so far that surviving them requires you to become someone new entirely. In the wreckage of broken promises lie the raw materials of reinvention. If you have the courage to gather them, this is not a story about revenge. It's about the quiet violence of resurrection, about building something so magnificent from your own ashes that the person who tried to erase you becomes irrelevant to your story. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in making someone pay. It's in proving they never broke you at all. Seattle, 1995. Rain pattered against the towering windows of the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom as Eleanor Rodriguez adjusted the pearl earrings, a splurge she'd allowed herself to celebrate 5 years at Hernandez Accounting. At 42, she commanded respect in her knee-length navy dress and sensible heels, her dark hair streaked with the first threads of silver, pulled back in a sleek chignon. The numbers for tonight's charity auction look good, she told her boss, Mateo Hernandez. We've already exceeded last year's donations by 15%. That's why you're my best accountant, Mateo said, patting her shoulder. Now go mingle, you deserve to enjoy yourself for once. Eleanor smiled but felt the familiar discomfort rise in her chest. Mingling wasn't her forte, especially not among Seattle's elite. She'd spent her life with her head bent over spreadsheets, finding safety in the orderly world of numbers. People especially wealthy. Powerful people were far less predictable. She sipped her champagne near the silent auction tables, mentally calculating the event's profit margins, when a deep voice broke her concentration. Either that painting is absolutely fascinating, or you're hiding. Eleanor turned to find herself looking up at a tall, imposing man in his mid-40s with salt and pepper hair and a smile that seemed practiced for maximum effect. Recognition flickered somewhere in her memory. Nathan Blackwood, he said, extending his hand. Blackwood Properties. The name registered immediately. Nathan Blackwood was one of Seattle's most prominent real estate developers, responsible for reshaping the city's skyline over the past decade. His projects were known for their bold design and premium pricing luxury condos and office towers that catered to the city's tech boom millionaires. Eleanor Rodriguez, she replied, shaking his hand firmly. I'm with Hernandez Accounting. We're handling the finances for tonight's event. A fellow numbers person, his eyes sharp, assessing studied her face. Have we met before? Something seems familiar? Eleanor shook her head, though the same nagging sense of recognition tugged at her. I don't think so. I would remember meeting the Nathan Blackwood. You flatter me, he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Wait, Rodriguez. Eleanor Rodriguez, Washington State, class of 76. The connection clicked. You went to WSU, football scholarship, business major? He snapped his fingers. You were that serious scholarship student always in the library, top of our accounting class. Eleanor felt heat rise to her cheeks. That was me, always studying, while I was usually, he trailed off with a self-deprecating chuckle. Usually surrounded by cheerleaders at the campus center, she finished, the memory suddenly crystal clear. Nathan Blackwood had been campus royalty star quarterback, business school golden boy, old Seattle money. She'd glimpsed him from afar, their social circles never intersecting. Guilty as charged, he admitted. Though look where all your studying got you. You must be quite successful. Before Eleanor could correct his assumption, she was comfortable, but hardly in his financial stratosphere. Mateo approached, eyes wide with recognition. Mr. Blackwood, what an honor. I see you've met my star financial analyst. Indeed I have. Eleanor and I are old college acquaintances, Nathan said, his hand coming to rest lightly on the small of Eleanor's back. The evening took an unexpected turn. Nathan stayed by her side, introducing her to Seattle's business elite as the financial genius who outperformed everyone at WSU. His attention was intoxicating. Eleanor had spent her career being overlooked, and now the most powerful man in the room hung on her words. When he asked for her business card at evening's end, she nearly fumbled retrieving it from her clutch. "I could use someone with your sharp mind," he said, tucking the card into his jacket pocket. "Expect my call tomorrow." Eleanor watched him stride away, wondering if the champagne had gone to her head. Men like Nathan Blackwood didn't notice women like her, practical, hard-working, divorced, single women in their 40s who'd built modest careers through determination rather than connections. The call came at precisely 9 sir the next morning. "Eleanor, Nathan Blackwood, have dinner with me tonight. I have a business proposition that might interest you." 3 months later, they were married. Eleanor couldn't pinpoint exactly when the fairy tale began to show cracks. Perhaps it was the first time Nathan corrected her table manners at dinner with the mayor, or when he suggested she replace her practical wardrobe with designer labels more befitting a developer's wife, or the subtle way he began interrupting her during business discussions, explaining concepts she'd mastered decades ago. But she'd push those concerns aside, dazzled by the penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, the weekend trips to Napa Valley, the ease with which Nathan navigated the upper echelons of Seattle society. For the first time in her life, doors that had always been closed to the daughter of Mexican immigrants swung open effortlessly. "You've finally found your place," her mother had said during their weekly call, pride evident in her voice. Eleanor hadn't corrected her, though sometimes she wondered if she'd simply found Nathan's place and was temporarily allowed to occupy it. Nathan had made her chief financial officer of Blackwood's newest division, Pacific Northwest Developments, tasked with overseeing a series of luxury housing projects catering to the tech boom. The role utilized her financial expertise while keeping her firmly under his corporate umbrella. Still, Eleanor threw herself into the work, determined to prove herself worthy of both her title and her marriage. By their third anniversary in early 1998, they'd settled into a comfortable rhythm. Eleanor excelled at her executive role, earning respect among Nathan's business associates. He'd softened his controlling tendencies, seemingly content with the capable, elegant woman she'd become. They traveled extensively, dined with celebrities and politicians, and discussed future plans for the company's expansion. Children had never been part of those plans. Eleanor had made peace with that decades ago, after a diagnosis of endometriosis in her 20s left her with a less than 5% chance of conception. Nathan had seemed relieved when she shared this medical history, having made it clear that his business was his primary legacy, which was why, on a rainy February morning in their third year of marriage, Eleanor stared at the pregnancy test in her marble bathroom with absolute disbelief. 2 pink lines. Unmistakable. "Impossible," she whispered, but she'd already taken 3 tests with identical results. At 45, Eleanor was pregnant. Her obstetrician, Dr. Vivian Matthews, confirmed the news that afternoon with equal parts concern and amazement. "It's what we in medicine call a statistical anomaly," she explained, reviewing the ultrasound. "Given your medical history and age, this pregnancy is essentially a miracle." Then came the second shock. "And here's the other heartbeat." "Dr. Matthews said, moving the ultrasound wand slightly. "Congratulations. Eleanor, you're carrying twins." Eleanor's hands trembled as she drove home, mind racing. How would Nathan react? He'd never expressed interest in fatherhood, and they were both at ages where retirement planning seemed more appropriate than nursery decorations. Yet beneath her anxiety bloomed a fierce, unexpected joy. After believing motherhood was forever beyond her reach, she now carried 2 lives inside her. She decided to wait for the right moment to share the news, perhaps their anniversary dinner next week. She needed time to process this seismic shift herself, but that carefully laid plan shattered the following day, when Eleanor discovered discrepancies in the company's Southeast Asian investment portfolio. The numbers didn't add up. A substantial development project in Malaysia showed impressive returns on paper, but when Eleanor cross-referenced the financial reports with the construction timelines, she found disturbing inconsistencies. The reported progress far exceeded what was physically possible given the documented materials and labor costs. Someone was cooking the books and doing it within her division. Eleanor spent hours verifying her findings, triple-checking calculations until her vision blurred. The implications were staggering if her suspicions were correct. Blackwood Properties had misrepresented millions in investments to shareholders and banks. She needed to alert Nathan immediately. Seattle was in the midst of one of its spectacular spring storms as Eleanor drove to Nathan's downtown headquarters, rain hammering her windshield with apocalyptic force. Traffic crawled along the waterfront as emergency vehicles responded to a multi-car accident ahead. Come on," she muttered, fingers drumming nervously on the steering wheel. Her phone rang Nathan's executive assistant. "Mrs. Blackwood, Mr. Blackwood asked me to inform you he'll be in meetings until late this evening. It's urgent. Diane, tell him I found serious discrepancies in the Malaysia reports." A lengthy pause. "I'll pass that along. He's currently with Mr. Harrington and the Westbrook Ventures team." Eleanor's stomach dropped. Thomas Harrington was Nathan's attorney, and Westbrook Ventures was their largest competitor, headed by the formidable Sarah Westbrook. What were they doing meeting together? "I'm on my way there now," Eleanor said, ending the call as she swerved around a stalled vehicle. The Blackwood Tower gleamed like a monolith of black glass against the stormy sky, raindrops streaming down its 60 stories like tears. Eleanor parked haphazardly in her reserved space, grabbing her laptop and financial records before sprinting through the downpour to the private executive elevator. Her drenched appearance earned curious looks from the evening security staff, but her executive credentials granted her immediate access. As the elevator ascended to the executive floor, Eleanor attempted to calm her racing heart, mentally rehearsing how to present her findings. The elevator doors opened to an unusually quiet reception area. Diane's desk sat empty, the executive suite beyond dark except for a sliver of light escaping from Nathan's office at the end of the hall. Eleanor moved quietly toward it, heels sinking into plush carpet. As she approached, voices drifted through the partially open door. "The Malaysian assets are essentially worthless," Nathan was saying, "but they've been recorded as performing at a 12% return for the past 2 quarters. And your CFO signed off on this," a woman's voice, likely Sarah Westbrook. "Eleanor sees what I want her to see." Nathan's dismissive tone cut through Eleanor like ice. "She's smart with legitimate numbers, but she's not exactly street savvy. She trusts me implicitly." "That's your wife you're talking about." "Nathan," Thomas Harrington's voice carried a note of discomfort. "And she served her purpose," Nathan replied coolly. "Having a Hispanic executive with an MBA gave us the diversity credibility we needed for the international investors. But with this Westbrook merger, I'll need someone with more sophisticated connections." "So the divorce rumors are true," Sarah said, not sounding particularly surprised. "Already in motion, my team's been documenting her business inadequacies for months. She'll be removed from the CFO position for cause, which triggers the prenup clauses limiting her settlement." Eleanor's laptop nearly slipped from her numb fingers. Divorce prenup clauses, performance documentation. "And if she fights it?" Harrington asked. "She won't." Nathan's confidence was chilling. "I've had investigators dig into her family background. Turns out her father was involved in some financial improprieties back in the 80s. Nothing that stuck in court, but enough that if it became public, no financial institution would touch her again." Eleanor's father, the most honorable man she'd ever known, had been falsely accused of embezzlement while managing a credit union branch in a predominantly Latino neighborhood. Though eventually cleared, the experience had crushed him, contributing to his early heart attack years later. "That's cold, Nathan, even for you." Sarah's voice held no admiration, only clinical assessment. "It's business," he replied. Eleanor was a useful acquisition during our expansion phase. Now we're consolidating and streamlining operations. Eleanor backed away from the door, heart pounding in her ears. Nathan wasn't just planning to divorce her, he was systematically destroying her professional reputation and threatening to smear her family's name. And she was carrying his children. She needed to leave immediately, to think, to plan. But as she turned toward the elevator, her heel caught on the carpet. She stumbled, her laptop case knocking against a side table and sending a crystal paperweight crashing to the floor. The conversation in the office stopped abruptly. "Who's there?" Nathan's sharp voice cut through the silence. Eleanor abandoned all pretense of stealth and ran for the elevator. Jabbing the button repeatedly, behind her, the office door flew open. "Eleanor!" Nathan's voice registered genuine shock. The elevator wasn't coming. Eleanor glanced at the stairwell door across the reception area. 60 floors down wasn't ideal in her condition, but she had no choice. "Eleanor! Stop! Let me explain," Nathan called, striding toward her. She darted toward the stairwell, pushing through the heavy door just as Nathan reached the reception desk. The concrete stairwell echoed with her rapid footsteps as she descended, hearing the door above bang open. "This is ridiculous," Nathan's voice reverberated in the stairwell. "Eleanor, you're overreacting. Come back up here now." She ignored him, continuing her descent. After a few flights, she heard the stairwell door slam above. Nathan had either given up the chase or taken the elevator down to intercept her. Eleanor paused on the 52nd floor, catching her breath. She couldn't go down to the lobby. Nathan would be waiting. Instead, she pushed through the door into an unfamiliar office floor. The Simmons Law Group, according to the signage. A cleaning woman looked up in surprise from vacuuming the reception area. "I need to get out of the building without going through the main lobby," Eleanor said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Is there a service elevator?" The woman hesitated, then nodded toward a hallway. "End of that corridor, but you need a key card." "I'm Mrs. Blackwood," Eleanor said, showing her executive ID. "Please, it's important." Recognition flickered in the woman's eyes. She reached into her pocket and produced a service key card. "Take it. The service exit comes out in the underground parking near P3. "Thank you," Eleanor said, pressing a $50 bill into the woman's hand before hurrying down the corridor. The service elevator was industrial and slow, stopping at multiple floors as evening cleaning staff got on and off. No one questioned her presence, though her designer suit and pearls clearly marked her as out of place. At the P3 level, Eleanor slipped out a service door into the rain-drenched parking garage. She kept to the shadows, making her way toward her car while scanning for Nathan. The parking area seemed deserted except for a security guard making rounds near the main entrance. Eleanor had nearly reached her car when headlights swept across the garage as a vehicle descended from the upper level. She recognized Nathan's distinctive black Jaguar and ducked behind a concrete pillar. Heart hammering. The Jaguar slowed near her parking space, then stopped. Eleanor held her breath as Nathan emerged, surveying the nearly empty garage. He pulled out his phone, presumably calling her cell, which she'd silenced in her pocket. "Damn it, Eleanor," she heard him mutter before he returned to his car and accelerated toward the exit. Once the Jaguar disappeared, Eleanor sprinted to her car, hands shaking so badly she dropped her keys twice before managing to unlock the door. She started the engine and took the opposite exit. Emerging onto a side street away from the main thoroughfare Nathan would likely be patrolling. Rain hammered against her windshield as she drove aimlessly through downtown Seattle. Mind racing. Where could she go? Not their penthouse, that would be the first place Nathan would look. Not her mother's retirement community in Tacoma, too obvious. She needed somewhere to regroup, to think clearly about what she'd just learned and what it meant for her future, and the future of the twins she carried. Eleanor checked into the Fairmont Olympic Hotel under her maiden name, paying cash for the room. Once inside, she sank onto the edge of the bed, finally allowing the tears she'd been suppressing to flow freely. Her marriage was a sham, Her career was being systematically dismantled. Her husband, the man she trusted with her heart, her future, her professional reputation had been plotting her downfall while she carried his children. Children he knew nothing about. Children who would be born into this nightmare if she didn't act quickly. Eleanor placed a protective hand over her still flat abdomen. "We'll figure this out," she whispered to the tiny lives inside her. "I promise." After allowing herself 30 minutes of tears, Eleanor straightened her shoulders and reached for the hotel phone. She wouldn't be Nathan Blackwood's victim. It was time to fight. Nathan's fury manifested with cold precision. Eleanor had only been back in their penthouse for 20 minutes, just long enough to pack essentials and financial documents when the elevator announced his arrival. She steeled herself in the master bedroom, a half-filled suitcase open on the bed. "There you are." Nathan stood in the doorway, his expression controlled but for a muscle twitching in his jaw. In his tailored charcoal suit with Seattle's lights glimmering behind him, he looked every inch the powerful executive. "Want to explain your behavior at the office?" Eleanor continued folding a sweater with deliberate calm. "I think I should be asking the questions. Nathan, starting with why you're planning to divorce me while manufacturing evidence against me professionally?" "You misunderstood what you heard." "Did I?" She turned to face him fully. "You called me an acquisition who had served her purpose. You've been documenting false performance issues to trigger prenup clauses. You threatened to use my father's past against me." Her voice remained steady despite the rage and hurt churning inside her. "Which part did I misunderstand?" Nathan's expression shifted from controlled anger to calculating assessment. "Fine. You weren't supposed to find out this way. But yes, I'm planning to restructure both the company and my personal life. The Westbrook merger requires certain adjustments." "Adjustments," Eleanor repeated hollowly. "Is that what I am to you?" "Don't be dramatic. Eleanor, we had a good run. 3 years is longer than most of my ventures last." He approached, hands open in a gesture of false reasonability. "I'm prepared to be generous despite the prenup, a decent settlement, the vacation house in Napa. You'll land on your feet." Eleanor stared at this stranger wearing her husband's face. "And my career after you've systematically undermined my professional reputation? A necessary business tactic." He shrugged. "Nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" she echoed, the absurdity of the statement almost making her laugh. "And what about your children? Nathan is destroying their future. Nothing personal? Two." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" "We don't have children." "I'm pregnant," Eleanor said, the words landing between them like grenades. "With twins?" Nathan's composure cracked for the first time, genuine shock flashing across his features before skepticism replaced it. "That's impossible. You told me you couldn't get pregnant." "Apparently medical miracles happen," she replied dryly. "I have the ultrasound if you'd like proof." He stared at her midsection as if expecting visible evidence, then shook his head sharply. "This changes nothing. If anything, it complicates an already untenable situation." "Untenable?" Eleanor's protective instinct flared. "These are your children." "Children I never wanted, with a woman I'm divorcing." Nathan snapped, mask slipping further. "Do you expect me to play happy family now? Abandon the Westbrook merger, the deal I've spent 5 years orchestrating because of an unexpected pregnancy?" Each word cut deeper than the last. Eleanor had harbored a faint hope that the pregnancy might trigger some latent humanity in him. That hope died as she watched calculation replace his initial shock. "How far along?" he demanded. 10 weeks. Nathan paced the bedroom, radiating tension. "No one knows yet. Only my doctor." He nodded sharply. "Good. We can handle this discreetly. I know a clinic in Vancouver." "Stop right there." Eleanor's voice cut like steel. "If you're suggesting what I think you are, the answer is absolutely not. These babies are coming into the world whether you want them or not." Nathan's face hardened. "Then you'll be doing it entirely on your own, without my name, support, or acknowledgement. And I promise you, Eleanor, if you try to leverage this pregnancy against me publicly, You'll regret it. Your father's past will be front-page news. Your professional reputation will be destroyed so thoroughly you won't get hired to balance a checkbook. The threat hung in the air between them, its cruelty breathtaking. Eleanor had known Nathan could be calculating, even ruthless in business, but she'd never imagined this level of cold inhumanity directed at her, at their unborn children. "You would deny your own children," she said softly, the full measure of his character finally revealed. "They're not my responsibility if I never wanted them," he replied coldly. "Your body, your choice, your problem." Eleanor zipped her suitcase with finality. "I'll be gone within the hour. My attorney will contact yours tomorrow." "Your attorney?" Nathan's laugh held no humor. "Who do you think will represent you against me in this city? I play golf with every senior partner at the top 10 firms. The others can't afford to cross me if they want commercial real estate clients." "I'll find someone," Eleanor said, though uncertainty flickered through her. Nathan's influence in Seattle was formidable. "Even if you do, you signed a prenuptial agreement. Check paragraph 23 infidelity claims. Without definitive proof trigger the minimal settlement clause." Eleanor froze. "Infidelity claims I've never been unfaithful." Nathan's smile was reptilian. "The prenup doesn't specify which party's infidelity. My legal team drafted it quite carefully." "You're claiming I was unfaithful." Outrage colored her words. "I'm claiming nothing yet. But if you fight me on this divorce or try to claim paternity and support for those—" He gestured dismissively toward her stomach. "The evidence of your affair with James Chen from accounting will become part of the public record." "James Chen, he's gay. Nathan and engaged to your marketing director?" "Details that will emerge after your reputation is destroyed," Nathan replied indifferently. "The initial accusation is what the media will remember." The calculated cruelty stole Eleanor's breath. She'd married a monster camouflaged by charm and social polish. Worse, she'd given him access to every aspect of her life, professional, financial, personal. Eleanor straightened her shoulders, a new resolve hardening within her. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "It's why I'm successful." His confidence was absolute. "The movers will collect the rest of your things tomorrow. I'll have Diane box up your office belongings. Don't bother with the office." "I resign, effective immediately." "Wise decision." Nathan checked his watch. "I have dinner with the mayor in an hour. I trust you'll be gone when I return." Without waiting for an answer, he turned and walked out, footsteps echoing through the penthouse that had never truly been her home. When the elevator doors closed behind him, Eleanor sank onto the edge of the bed, one hand protectively covering her abdomen. For a brief moment, despair threatened to overwhelm her. She was 45, pregnant with twins, about to be divorced and professionally blackballed by one of Seattle's most powerful men. Then a different emotion surged through her determination, white-hot and clarifying. Nathan believed he'd orchestrated the perfect takedown, financial, professional, and personal. He expected her to crumble, to slink away defeated. He had grossly underestimated Eleanor Rodriguez. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd found earlier at the hotel while researching law firms with no ties to Blackwood Properties. "Klein Family Law," answered a crisp, no-nonsense voice. "This is Eleanor Rodriguez. I need to speak with Sophia Klein regarding a high-conflict divorce from Nathan Blackwood." A pause. "One moment, please." As Eleanor waited, she moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Storm clouds had cleared, revealing a canopy of stars above the dark water. 3 years ago, she'd stood in this same spot the night Nathan proposed, believing she'd finally found belonging and security. The illusion had shattered, but something more valuable was emerging from the ruins, the uncompromising truth of her own strength. "Mrs. Blackwood," a gravelly female voice came on the line. "Sophia Klein here. Did you say you're divorcing Nathan Blackwood?" "Yes," Eleanor confirmed. "And I'm pregnant with his twins." A low whistle. "Well, darling, you've got yourself a situation. I'm 72 years old, semi-retired, And I've been waiting 30 years to see someone take Nathan Blackwood down a peg. My office, 8 a.m. tomorrow. For the first time that day, Eleanor smiled. I'll be there. He's lying about the prenup. Sophia Klein made this pronouncement after reviewing the document Eleanor had brought to her wood-paneled office in Pioneer Square. At 72, Sophia was a legal legend, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and utterly unimpressed by the Seattle elite. Her office walls displayed photos with Supreme Court justices alongside her prize catches from decades of fishing trips. What do you mean? Eleanor asked, hope flickering. This clause about infidelity triggering minimal settlement? Sophia tapped the offending paragraph with a gnarled finger. Completely unenforceable in Washington state unless there's direct correlation between the infidelity and financial harm, which there isn't, since you never cheated. Relief washed through Eleanor. So his threat is bullshit, Sophia finished bluntly. Typical Nathan Blackwood intimidation tactic. He's counting on you not knowing your rights. What about my father? Eleanor asked, the threat against her family still burning. Sophia's expression softened slightly. The false accusations sealed records from 20 years ago. Fully exonerated. He can try to smear your father's name, but any decent lawyer could shut that down with a defamation countersuit. Eleanor exhaled slowly. Nathan made it sound like I had no options. That's what men like him do, Sophia said, pouring them both coffee from a battered thermos. They create an illusion of absolute power. But here's what Nathan doesn't know. I've been collecting information on his business practices for years, waiting for the right case. She smiled thinly. Congratulations, Eleanor. You're the right case. Over the next 3 hours, Sophia outlined a counteroffensive strategy that left Eleanor both impressed and slightly terrified. The senior attorney had connections throughout Seattle's financial and legal communities, people who owed her favors or harbored their own grievances against Nathan Blackwood. You mentioned discrepancies in the Malaysian development. Sophia made notes as Eleanor explained the accounting irregularities she'd discovered. That's our leverage. Not for the divorce directly that'll proceed on separate tracks, but to ensure he doesn't destroy your professional reputation. He'll claim I signed off on those reports, Eleanor warned. Did you? No. I found the discrepancies yesterday, which is why I went to his office. Sophia's smile was predatory. Even better. We document your discovery and immediate attempt to report it. That makes you a whistleblower, which provides additional legal protections. By afternoon's end, they had outlined a three-pronged approach to secure Eleanor's financial position through the divorce, protect her professional reputation, and prepare for the twins' arrival. The plan was aggressive but measured, designed to achieve security rather than revenge. One last thing, Sophia said as Eleanor prepared to leave. Nathan will make your pregnancy public the moment it serves his interests. We need to control that narrative first. How, Dr. Vivian Matthews is an old friend, Sophia replied. She can connect you with the top high-risk pregnancy specialist in the Northwest. With your age and twins, medical documentation of proper care creates another layer of protection. If Nathan tries to paint you as unstable or irresponsible, your meticulous prenatal care undermines that narrative. Eleanor nodded, feeling the first stirrings of genuine hope. Thank you, Sophia. What do I owe you for today? The older woman waved dismissively. Consider this pro bono groundwork. We'll formalize billing once we file. For now, focus on finding secure housing and taking care of those babies. Nathan's having the penthouse movers come today. Already handled, Sophia said with satisfaction. I filed an emergency injunction this morning preventing removal of your personal property without court oversight. The movers will be met by my paralegal with the court order. Eleanor stared in amazement. You filed before we even met, darling. I've been waiting for someone to take on Nathan Blackwood for decades. The moment you called, I started making moves. Sophia's eyes twinkled with battle light. He thinks he's the only one who knows how to play chess in this town. Time to show him he's wrong. Nathan's response was swift and brutal. Within 48 hours of Eleanor moving into a furnished apartment in Queen Anne, The cascade began. First came the freeze-out from her bank accounts temporarily suspended, pending security verification. Next, her corporate credit cards were canceled. Then came the most painful blow calls from concerned friends and colleagues reporting rumors that Eleanor had been terminated for financial improprieties. "He's using the same playbook he's used before," Sophia explained during their emergency meeting. "Financial strangulation, reputation destruction, and social isolation, classic abuser tactics, just executed with corporate resources." "What about the emergency funds I withdrew?" Eleanor asked, anxiety mounting. "Safe for now, but we need to move quickly on the rest of our strategy." That strategy accelerated when Eleanor discovered her health insurance had been terminated, a potentially devastating development given her high-risk pregnancy. Sophia's response was immediate and fierce. By that afternoon, they had filed both an emergency motion to reinstate medical coverage and a preliminary whistleblower report regarding the Malaysian project discrepancies with the Securities and Exchange Commission. "We're not using the nuclear option yet," Sophia cautioned. "This initial SEC filing is sealed and preliminary, just enough to establish your whistleblower status without triggering a full investigation that might tank the company's stock." "I don't want to destroy the company," Eleanor confirmed. "Too many innocent employees would suffer." "Precisely. We're creating leverage, not carnage." The whistleblower filing achieved its intended effect. Within hours, Nathan's attorney, the silver-haired Thomas Harrington Eleanor, had overheard in the office requested an urgent meeting. "Absolutely not," Sophia declared when Eleanor relayed the message. "No meeting without me present, and no informal discussions whatsoever. All communication goes through counsel now." The formal meeting occurred 3 days later in Sophia's conference room. Eleanor, now 11 weeks pregnant and battling constant nausea, sat straight back beside her attorney as Nathan and Harrington entered. Nathan looked immaculate as always. Not a hint of stress visible in his precisely tailored suit or confident stride. His gaze swept past Eleanor as if she were furniture. "Ms. Klein," Harrington began with professional courtesy, "we appreciate your willingness to meet informally before positions harden further." "There's nothing informal about this meeting, Counselor," Sophia replied crisply. "And positions hardened the moment your client terminated my client's health insurance while she carries his twins." Nathan's eye twitched, the only indication that the twins reference had landed. "An administrative oversight," Harrington said smoothly. "Already being corrected. Along with the reinstated access to marital funds and the public retraction of defamatory statements about Mrs. Blackwood's professional conduct." Sophia's tone made it clear these weren't requests. Harrington glanced at Nathan, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "We can accommodate reasonable arrangements during the separation period," Harrington conceded, "in exchange for withdrawal of the SEC filing." "The filing stays," Sophia stated flatly. "Consider it insurance against further administrative oversights." Nathan finally spoke, his voice controlled but eyes cold as he addressed Eleanor directly. "Is this really how you want to handle things, mutually assured destruction?" Eleanor met his gaze steadily. "I'm not destroying anything, Nathan. I'm protecting myself and our children from your attempts to leave us destitute and disgraced." "Our children," he repeated with soft mockery. "You still believe I'll acknowledge them. Whether you acknowledge them or not, they exist," Eleanor replied evenly. "And Washington State will hold you financially responsible regardless of your personal feelings." Nathan's smile was chilling. "You've become quite the fighter, Eleanor. I underestimated you." "Yes," she agreed simply. "You did." The meeting concluded with a tense ceasefire. Eleanor's health insurance and access to limited marital funds would be reinstated. In exchange, the SEC filing would remain sealed unless Nathan violated their agreement. The divorce proceedings would continue, with temporary support established for Eleanor's prenatal care. As Nathan and Harrington prepared to leave, Nathan paused beside Eleanor's chair. "This changes nothing about the ultimate outcome," he said quietly. "You'll still lose, I just didn't realize I'd need to allocate more resources to make it happen. Eleanor looked up at him, this man she'd once loved, and felt nothing but pity. The difference between us, Nathan, is that I'm not trying to make you lose. I'm simply refusing to let you destroy me. His jaw tightened as he turned and strode from the room. Round one to us, Sophia murmured after the door closed. But he'll be back with reinforcements. Nathan Blackwood doesn't lose gracefully. Eleanor nodded, one hand resting protectively over her still flat abdomen. Then we'd better prepare for round two. Round two arrived in the form of a manila envelope delivered to Eleanor's apartment 2 weeks later. Inside were photos Eleanor entering Sophia's office. Eleanor at her prenatal appointment, Eleanor shopping for groceries. Attached was a typed note, just a reminder that you're being watched. Choose your next moves carefully. Eleanor's hands trembled as she called Sophia. Classic intimidation tactic, the attorney said after Eleanor described the contents. Meant to make you feel violated and unsafe. Don't throw anything away, it's evidence of harassment. And Eleanor, don't go anywhere alone for a while. That evening, Eleanor discovered her apartment door unlocked when she returned from dinner with her mother. Nothing was missing or disturbed. The intrusion itself was the message. Sophia immediately arranged for Eleanor to move to a secure building with doorman service and relocated her to a suite in the Four Seasons under a pseudonym until the new apartment was ready. He's escalating because our strategy is working, Sophia explained over secure phones. The SEC filing has him worried, and the court's temporary support order legitimizes your position. He's trying to scare you into a mistake. Instead of cowering, Eleanor doubled down. With Sophia's guidance, she documented every intimidation attempt. When a fake LinkedIn profile appeared with Eleanor's name and a damaging professional history, they filed for identity theft and defamation. When anonymous complaints emerged about Eleanor's past work, they traced them back to a Blackwood Properties IP address. Each countermove strengthened their position, building a pattern of harassment that would ultimately damage Nathan in court. But the psychological toll was mounting. At 14 weeks pregnant, Eleanor was exhausted, constantly vigilant, and increasingly isolated as former colleagues and acquaintances distanced themselves, unwilling to be caught in Nathan's crosshairs. Only her mother, Sophia, and Dr. Matthews remained steadfast. Eleanor's pregnancy progressed with the twins developing normally, though Dr. Matthews monitored her stress levels with concern. These babies need you healthy, the doctor admonished during Eleanor's 16-week checkup. And that means managing this ongoing stress. Have you considered leaving Seattle temporarily? The suggestion took root. Perhaps physical distance from Nathan's sphere of influence would provide both safety and space to heal. Eleanor discussed options with Sophia, who agreed that strategic retreat might be their best move, particularly with a new development in the case. Nathan's Malaysian project is imploding, Sophia explained during their secure call. Investors are asking questions that align exactly with the discrepancies you identified. If the project collapses spectacularly enough, Nathan will be too busy with damage control to focus on tormenting you. Eleanor felt no satisfaction at the news. Despite everything, she took no pleasure in the company's troubles, knowing innocent employees would suffer. This might be the perfect time for you to disappear for a while, Sophia continued. Let Nathan deal with his business crisis without using you as a distraction or scapegoat. Disappear where? I have a colleague in Portland with a client housing program for high-conflict divorce cases. Completely confidential, excellent security, and close enough that I can still represent you effectively. The plan came together quickly. Within a week, Eleanor had sublet her secured apartment, packed essential belongings, and prepared for temporary relocation to Portland under an assumed name. The court approved the arrangement given the documented harassment, with provisions for Eleanor to attend necessary legal proceedings in Seattle. The morning of her departure, Eleanor stood at her apartment window, gazing at the Seattle skyline she'd come to love. Mount Rainier gleamed in the distance. The sounds sparkled in the morning light, and the city hummed with the energy that had once represented possibility and belonging. Now it felt like hostile territory, ruled by a man determined to punish her for the crime of refusing to be discarded on his terms. Eleanor placed one hand over her growing baby bump, now visible beneath her loose sweater. "We'll come back on our own terms," she promised her unborn children. "When we're stronger and he's weaker." The secure transport Sophia had arranged arrived precisely on schedule. Eleanor took one last look at the life she was temporarily leaving behind, then squared her shoulders and walked toward an uncertain but necessary new beginning. She didn't see the black Jaguar parked 2 blocks away, or Nathan's cold eyes tracking her departure. Portland greeted Eleanor with gentler rhythms than Seattle's frenetic pace. Her temporary home, a secured apartment in a converted Victorian, managed by Sophia's colleague Barbara Winters, offered both safety and anonymity. The building housed several women in similar circumstances, professionals navigating high-conflict divorces from wealthy, powerful men. "The sisterhood of the financially threatened," quipped Denise, a former hedge fund manager fighting her tech CEO husband for her rightful share of their joint ventures. Eleanor found unexpected comfort in this community of women who understood precisely what she was experiencing. They shared legal strategies over herbal tea in the communal garden, compared judicial temperaments, and offered practical advice for documenting financial assets during contentious divorces. For the first time since Nathan's betrayal, Eleanor didn't feel alone in her struggle. At 20 weeks pregnant, the twins were declared healthy boys during an ultrasound at Portland's Maternal Health Center. Eleanor wept at the sight of their perfect profiles, their tiny hands and feet, their strong heartbeats. "Have you thought about names?" asked Dr. Whitman, the specialist Barbara had connected her with. Eleanor nodded. "Michael and Gabriel." The names honored her father, Miguel, and her grandfather. Gabriel, men who had taught her about integrity, perseverance, and unconditional love, the qualities she hoped to instill in her sons, especially in the absence of a father figure. As her pregnancy progressed, Eleanor focused on 3 priorities: her health, the legal battle, and preparing for the twins' arrival. Barbara helped her connect with Portland's Spanish-speaking community, where Eleanor found additional support and practical resources for single motherhood. Meanwhile, Sophia kept her updated on developments in Seattle, where Nathan was indeed facing significant business challenges. "The Malaysian project has officially collapsed," Sophia reported during their weekly secure call. "Investors are threatening lawsuits, and the SEC has opened a formal investigation, not because of our filing, which remains sealed, but because the failure was too spectacular to ignore." "Is Nathan directly implicated?" Eleanor asked, feeling conflicted about the answer she wanted. "Not yet. He's distancing himself, claiming executives in the international division misled him. Classic Blackwood deflection." Sophia's voice carried a hint of admiration despite her animosity. "He's remarkably skilled at finding scapegoats." The business crisis created an unexpected advantage in the divorce proceedings. With Nathan focused on corporate damage control, his attorney became more amenable to reasonable settlement terms. The temporary support payments arrived consistently, and the harassment attempts ceased entirely. By her 3rd trimester, Eleanor had established a peaceful routine in Portland. She attended prenatal yoga, consulted with a financial advisor about post-divorce planning, and transformed her apartment's 2nd bedroom into a modest nursery for the twins. The distance, both physical and emotional, allowed her to process the trauma of Nathan's betrayal and reconnect with her core strengths. She began to envision a future beyond survival mode, one where she rebuilt her career and raised her sons with confidence. That tentative peace shattered on a rainy April morning when Barbara appeared at her door, expression grave. "Eleanor, I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's something you need to see." She handed over her tablet, open to the Seattle Business Journal's website. The headline made Eleanor's blood run cold. "Blackwood Properties CEO denies paternity in high-profile divorce." The article quoted sources close to Nathan Blackwood, claiming Eleanor had fabricated the pregnancy to extract a larger settlement, and that Blackwood had medical confirmation he could not father children. It further implied Eleanor had engaged in extramarital affairs, naming James Chen specifically. Eleanor sank onto her sofa, one hand protectively covering her prominent belly, where the twins were currently kicking vigorously. "He's going public with the paternity denial," she whispered, "and dragging James into it." Barbara sat beside her, voice gentle but firm. "This is a calculated move. The business crisis must be worse than reported if Nathan's willing to create this kind of personal scandal as distraction." Eleanor nodded numbly, scanning the rest of the article. Nathan's spokesperson expressed deep concern for Mrs. Blackwood's mental health and suggested her delusions about the pregnancy reflected psychological instability. The cruelty was breathtaking. Nathan wasn't just denying paternity, he was suggesting Eleanor was mentally unbalanced. "I need to call Sophia," Eleanor said, reaching for her secure phone. Sophia had already seen the article and was incandescent with rage. "This crosses every line," she fumed. "Attacking a pregnant woman's mental stability, publicly naming an innocent third party. He's desperate and flailing." "What do we do?" Eleanor asked, struggling to maintain composure. "We counterpunch hard." Sophia's voice hardened with resolve. "I've been saving our nuclear option for precisely this scenario." The nuclear option was information Sophia had collected over decades about Nathan's business practices, including documentation of previous pattern of discarding wives and girlfriends who became inconvenient. "We don't engage directly with the paternity claims," Sophia explained. "That's what he wants, a public mud wrestling match about your personal life. Instead, we redirect attention to his established pattern of behavior and the suspicious timing of these allegations amid his business crisis." By afternoon, Sophia had mobilized a response team, a crisis management specialist, a medical expert prepared to testify about paternity testing protocols, and James Chen himself, outraged about being dragged into the scandal and ready to file his own defamation suit against Nathan. "James is furious," Sophia reported, "not just for himself, but for you. He says Nathan's behavior confirms everything he suspected about the man's character." Their counteroffensive launched the following morning. Rather than a direct denial, they released a dignified statement through Eleanor's newly retained crisis manager. "Ms. Rodriguez is focused on her health and the well-being of her twin sons during this high-risk pregnancy. She welcomes appropriate paternity testing after their birth and finds the timing of these defamatory claims amid Mr. Blackwood's well-documented business difficulties, both transparent and disturbing. She asks for privacy during this sensitive time and thanks those who have offered support." The statement was accompanied by a formal defamation lawsuit against Nathan personally, not Blackwood Properties, for the mental health allegations. Simultaneously, James Chen and his fiancée held a press conference announcing their own defamation suit, with James explicitly stating he had never had any relationship with Eleanor beyond professional collegiality. "I'm a gay man, engaged to another Blackwood employee," James stated clearly. "These allegations are not only false, but appear designed to damage multiple lives to serve Mr. Blackwood's personal agenda." The dueling narratives dominated Seattle business news for days. Nathan's team scrambled to control the damage, especially after 3 former Blackwood executives came forward with similar stories of being scapegoated during company crises. The paternity controversy receded beneath larger questions about Nathan's leadership and character. Blackwood Properties stock fell another 12%, and the board of directors called an emergency meeting. For Eleanor, the public battle was both vindicating and exhausting. At 34 weeks pregnant with twins, her doctor ordered complete bed rest to prevent premature labor triggered by stress. "The babies are healthy," Dr. Whitman assured her, "but your blood pressure is concerning. We need to keep those boys cooking for at least 3 more weeks." Confined to her apartment, Eleanor focused on remaining calm for her son's sake. Barbara organized a rotation of building residents to bring meals and provide company. Denise taught Eleanor meditation techniques she'd learned during her own high-conflict divorce. Maria, a retired literature professor, read Spanish poetry aloud during afternoon visits. This community of women, each fighting her own battle against powerful men who'd once claimed to love them, became Eleanor's lifeline. "We survive because we refuse to be erased," Maria told her one evening. "Men like your ex-husband believe their money and influence make them gods with the power to unmake us. Our existence, our thriving, is our greatest rebellion." On May the 2nd, 1999, at precisely 3:17 a.m., Eleanor's water broke. Barbara drove her to Providence Medical Center through Portland's empty streets, staying by her side through the initial examination. 36 weeks with twins is excellent, the attending physician assured Eleanor. Their lung development looks good on the ultrasound, and their heart rates are strong. Labor progressed rapidly, too rapidly for the epidural Eleanor had planned. With only Barbara as her support person, Eleanor endured 22 hours of increasingly intense contractions. "I can't do this," she gasped during a particularly brutal contraction. "It's too much." Barbara gripped her hand firmly. "You're already doing it. Eleanor, you're the strongest woman I know. These boys are coming into the world because you refuse to be broken." Michael Rodriguez arrived first at 1:24 a.m. on May 3rd, announcing his presence with a lusty cry that echoed through the delivery room. His brother Gabriel followed 17 minutes later, smaller but equally determined. When the nurses placed the swaddled newborns in her arms, Eleanor experienced love with an intensity that stole her breath. Michael, with his shock of dark hair and serious expression, already resembled Nathan in his bone structure. Gabriel, smaller and more delicate, had Eleanor's eyes and mouth. They were undeniably Blackwood's sons. They were undeniably hers. "Hello, my fighters," she whispered, kissing each tiny forehead. "We made it." As dawn broke over Portland, Eleanor Rodriguez, exhausted, triumphant, and irrevocably changed, held the future in her arms. Whatever battles remained with Nathan, she had already won the most important victory. These perfect boys had arrived safely, despite every attempt to deny their existence. Later that morning, as the twins slept in clear bassinets beside her hospital bed, Eleanor made 2 calls, the first to her mother, joyfully announcing the birth of her grandsons, the second to Sophia, who answered despite the early hour. "They're here," Eleanor said simply, "healthy and perfect. And when I'm recovered enough to travel, we're coming back to Seattle to finish this." "That's my girl," Sophia replied, satisfaction evident in her voice. "Rest now. Gather your strength. Nathan Blackwood won't know what hit him when you return." Eleanor looked at her sleeping sons, living proof of what she'd endured and overcome, and felt a bone-deep certainty settle within her. "No," she agreed softly. "He won't." Seattle had changed in Eleanor's absence, or perhaps she was seeing it through new eyes. The city skyline still sparkled against the blue waters of Puget Sound, but the Blackwood Tower no longer seemed an intimidating monolith. It was just another glass and steel structure among many, impressive but ultimately impermanent, like Nathan's power over her life. Eleanor returned to Seattle when the twins were 8 weeks old, moving into a modest 2-bedroom apartment in the diverse Lake City neighborhood. The community reminded her of the one where she'd grown up, primarily working-class families from varied backgrounds, small businesses with handwritten signs, and a practical neighborliness that contrasted sharply with the superficial networking of Nathan's social circle. The paternity controversy had faded from headlines during her absence, overshadowed by Blackwood Properties' continued financial troubles. The Malaysian project collapse had triggered investor lawsuits, regulatory scrutiny, and a 35% drop in the company's stock value. According to Sophia's sources, Nathan was fighting simultaneous battles against stockholders demanding his resignation, investors seeking financial restitution, and the SEC investigating potential securities fraud. "He's wounded but still dangerous," Sophia cautioned during their first in-person meeting since Eleanor's return. "Cornered predators fight most viciously." They met in Sophia's office, the twins sleeping in a double stroller beside Eleanor's chair. The attorney studied the infants with undisguised curiosity. "Michael looks exactly like Nathan did at that age," she observed. I remember the Blackwood family photos from when I handled his parents' divorce. Eleanor nodded. The resemblance is undeniable, which makes his paternity denial even more absurd. A desperate tactic that's backfiring spectacularly. Sophia agreed. His own mother contacted me yesterday. Eleanor stared in shock. Nathan's mother, Virginia Blackwood. The very same. Apparently, she saw photos of the twins through social connections and was appalled by Nathan's behavior. She's offered to testify about the family resemblance if the paternity matter goes to court. The news was stunning. Virginia Blackwood was Seattle old money royalty, a philanthropist who maintained dignified silence through numerous family scandals. Her willingness to testify against her own son signaled a seismic shift in Nathan's support structure. What does this mean for our strategy? Eleanor asked. It means we press our advantage. Sophia's eyes gleamed with the enthusiasm of a tactician seeing victory on the horizon. We file for permanent child support and paternity confirmation immediately, with Virginia's potential testimony as leverage. Simultaneously, we approach the Blackwood Properties Board with an offer. What kind of offer? A confidential settlement that allows Nathan to resolve the paternity matter privately, in exchange for appropriate financial support for the twins and an agreement not to contest your revised divorce terms. Eleanor considered the proposal. You think the board will pressure him to accept? They're already looking for ways to remove him without triggering his golden parachute. This gives them additional leverage. Sophia leaned forward. More importantly, it gives you what you actually need: financial security for the twins without dragging them through years of ugly litigation. Eleanor glanced at her sleeping sons. Michael's tiny fist was curled around Gabriel's blanket. The brothers connected even in sleep. They deserved stability, peace, and protection from the toxic battle their father seemed determined to wage. Let's do it, she decided. But I have one condition: no confidentiality agreement regarding Nathan's behavior. I won't be silenced about what he did. Sophia nodded approvingly. That's my girl. Financial settlement with no gag order. I'll draft the proposal immediately. As predicted, the Blackwood Properties Board seized the opportunity. Nathan, fighting battles on multiple fronts, found himself outmaneuvered by the very power structure he'd helped create. The board made their position clear: resolve the paternity scandal quietly or face removal as CEO. The final settlement exceeded even Sophia's optimistic projections: substantial child support until the twins reached 25, a trust fund for their education, and a fair division of marital assets that acknowledged Eleanor's contributions to Blackwood's success during their marriage. Most importantly, Nathan would acknowledge paternity but waive all parental rights, giving Eleanor sole legal and physical custody. He caved more easily than expected. Sophia noted when the final documents arrived. The board must have something significant hanging over his head. Eleanor signed the agreements with steady hands, ending her legal connection to Nathan Blackwood after nearly 4 years of marriage and 8 months of bitter conflict. She felt no triumph, only relief and a quiet determination to build something new from the wreckage. That determination faced immediate challenges. Despite the generous settlement, Eleanor's professional reputation had suffered significant damage during the divorce battle. Nathan's systematic campaign to discredit her financial expertise had been thorough, with whispered rumors and manufactured concerns that made potential employers hesitant. 3 months of rejected applications and uncomfortable interviews forced Eleanor to confront an uncomfortable truth: she might never work in corporate finance again. At least not in Seattle, where Nathan's influence remained substantial despite his troubles. The realization came to a head during a particularly difficult night when both twins were teething, their discomfort manifesting in inconsolable crying that left Eleanor exhausted and doubting her abilities as both mother and provider. At 2 a.m., pacing her small living room with Gabriel wailing against her shoulder while Michael finally slept in his crib, Eleanor found herself facing the darkest moment since Nathan's betrayal. The settlement money provided immediate security. But what about her son's future? What about her own identity beyond Nathan Blackwood's discarded wife or struggling single mother? When morning came, Eleanor placed the exhausted twins in their stroller and walked to Lake City's small business district. She needed coffee, fresh air, and perspective beyond the walls of her apartment. At Magdalena's Cafe, a tiny Mexican-American eatery run by an elderly couple from Oaxaca, Eleanor found unexpected clarity. The owners, noticing her exhaustion, insisted on holding the twins while she enjoyed her café con leche and conchas. As Eleanor watched Magdalena expertly soothe Gabrielle, while her husband Francisco entertained Michael with exaggerated facial expressions, a conversation unfolded that would alter her trajectory. "Your babies, they are beautiful," Magdalena said in Spanish-accented English. "But you, Mama, you look like you carry the weight of mountains." The simple acknowledgement of her struggle broke something open in Eleanor. Before she realized it, she was sharing her story, the betrayal, the divorce, the professional blacklisting with these kind strangers. Francisco listened intently before asking, "What did you do before in your work?" "I was a financial executive," Eleanor explained. "Specialized in corporate accounting and investment analysis?" The older man nodded thoughtfully. "My nephew, he has a restaurant in Ballard. Very good food, very bad bookkeeping. The IRS, they send him letters. He needs someone who understands business money but won't charge big company prices." "I could help with that," Eleanor said automatically, her problem-solving instincts engaging despite her exhaustion. Magdalena and Francisco exchanged looks. "Many small businesses here need help," Magdalena continued. "Immigrant families, good at their work but not understanding American tax papers and bank loans. They pay fair, but not corporate money." The seed of an idea took root. Eleanor had been applying for positions similar to her previous corporate roles, seeking to re-enter the world that had ejected her. But what if, instead, she created something new? "Do you think your nephew would be interested in meeting?" Eleanor asked. "I could review his situation, see if I can help." Francisco's face brightened. "See, Claro, I call him now." That afternoon, Eleanor met with Javier Morales at his struggling Ballard restaurant, Mariscos. The small seafood eatery offered exceptional cuisine, but operated on precarious financial footing due to disorganized accounting and tax compliance issues. Eleanor spent 3 hours reviewing his paperwork, organizing his financial records, and developing a straightforward system he could maintain. By evening, she had prepared a plan to address his IRS concerns and improve his cash flow management. "How much do I owe you?" Javier asked, clearly impressed but worried about the cost. Eleanor considered. Corporate consultation at her previous level would run thousands of dollars. But this wasn't corporate work, and Javier wasn't a wealthy client. "500 for today's work and the systems I've set up," she decided. "Then 300 monthly if you want ongoing support with quarterly financials and tax preparation." The amount was modest by professional standards, but significant enough to respect her expertise. Javier accepted immediately, expressing relief at finding help he could both afford and trust. As Eleanor walked back to her car, carrying the check for her first independent consulting job, a new path materialized before her. The corporate world had closed its doors, but perhaps that simply meant she needed to build her own doorway. Within a month, Eleanor had 6 small business clients, primarily Latino-owned restaurants and shops referred through Francisco and Magdalena's extensive community connections. Working from her apartment while the twins napped, she provided financial management services tailored to small operations with limited resources. The work paid less than her corporate salary but offered unexpected rewards, grateful clients who valued her expertise, flexible hours that accommodated single motherhood, and the profound satisfaction of helping immigrant entrepreneurs navigate systems designed to intimidate them. Eleanor named her fledgling consultancy Rodriguez Financial Solutions and invested in business cards and a simple website. Her mother, Carmen, now retired from teaching, moved from Tacoma to Seattle to help with the twins, allowing Eleanor to expand her client base beyond the initial referrals. By the twins' first birthday, in May 2000, Rodriguez Financial Solutions had 27 regular clients and a waiting list. Eleanor had hired a part-time assistant, moved to a larger apartment with a dedicated home office, and begun specialized training in small business tax strategies. The dot-com boom that had fueled Seattle's economy was creating opportunities even for small neighborhood businesses. As newly wealthy tech workers sought authentic experiences and services, Eleanor's clients were perfectly positioned to benefit from this trend, provided they had the financial infrastructure to scale appropriately. Recognizing this potential, Eleanor expanded her services to include digital transition consulting, helping traditional businesses establish basic online presence and electronic payment systems. Though not a tech expert herself, she partnered with community college students seeking real-world experience, creating affordable solutions for businesses that larger firms wouldn't bother with. This innovative approach caught the attention of the Seattle Small Business Association, which invited Eleanor to speak at their quarterly meeting. The presentation, Digital Transition for Traditional Businesses, Affordable Strategies for the New Economy, drew unexpected attention from local business media. The Seattle Business Chronicle's profile of Rodriguez Financial Solutions marked Eleanor's first positive media coverage since the divorce scandal. From corporate executive to small business champion, how Eleanor Rodriguez is helping Seattle's neighborhood enterprises thrive in the digital age. The article made no mention of Nathan Blackwood or the divorce, focusing entirely on Eleanor's current work and its impact on Seattle's diverse business community. The photos showed her in her modest office, professional but approachable, with small framed pictures of the twins visible on her desk. Eleanor received the validation cautiously, aware that her story could still be weaponized against her, but no negative coverage materialized. Nathan, still dealing with Blackwood Properties' ongoing crisis, seemed to have lost interest in tormenting his former wife now that the legal battle was settled. The twins thrived under the combined care of Eleanor and Carmen. Michael developed into an energetic, commanding presence, already showing leadership tendencies as he approached toddlerhood. Gabriel remained more observant and thoughtful, with an emotional sensitivity that sometimes revealed itself in night terrors and separation anxiety. Both boys bore physical resemblances to Nathan that occasionally caught Eleanor off guard. Michael's determined jaw, Gabriel's analytical gaze, but their spirits remained untouched by the man who had denied their existence, shaped instead by the strong women raising them and the diverse community surrounding them. Eleanor's business continued growing throughout 2001, even as the dot-com bubble burst and Seattle's economy contracted. Her small business clients proved remarkably resilient during the downturn, their lean operations and loyal customer bases providing stability that many venture-funded startups lacked. By the twins' second birthday, Rodriguez Financial Solutions had expanded to a small office space in Lake City with 3 full-time employees. Eleanor now specialized in financial resilience planning for minority-owned businesses, helping them weather economic uncertainty through disciplined financial management and strategic pivoting. This expertise earned her an invitation to join the newly formed Minority Business Alliance, a regional organization connecting diverse entrepreneurs with resources and opportunities. The Alliance's inaugural meeting brought Eleanor into contact with someone who would profoundly influence her future trajectory, Dr. Margaret Chen, a 65-year-old retired psychologist who had built a successful consulting practice, helping women rebuild after personal and professional trauma. "Your story resonates with so many," Dr. Chen told Eleanor during their first conversation. "Not just the dramatic parts with your ex-husband, but how you've reconstructed your professional identity on your own terms." Eleanor demurred. "I'm still figuring it out day by day." Dr. Chen smiled knowingly. "That's precisely what makes your journey valuable to others. You're not offering a finished miracle story, you're demonstrating the messy, ongoing process of reclamation." Their conversation evolved into regular mentorship sessions, with Dr. Chen helping Eleanor process the lingering trauma of Nathan's betrayal and develop healthier boundaries in both personal and professional relationships. "You've handled the practical rebuilding brilliantly," Dr. Chen observed during one of their meetings. "But there's emotional reconstruction that needs equal attention." Eleanor couldn't deny the truth in this assessment. Despite her professional progress, she remained hypervigilant, expecting betrayal around every corner. She hadn't dated since the divorce. Couldn't imagine trusting a romantic partner again. Worst of all, she sometimes caught herself scanning Michael's face for hints of Nathan's cruelty or Gabriel's expressions for signs of manipulation. I'm afraid their genetic inheritance includes his worst qualities, she confessed to Dr. Chen. Sometimes I look at Michael's determination and wonder if it will evolve into Nathan's ruthlessness. Nature provides templates, but nurture determines how those templates develop, Dr. Han Chen replied. Your sons will have some of their father's traits, that's biology, but you're showing them how to channel determination into protection rather than domination, analysis into understanding rather than manipulation. These conversations gradually helped Eleanor separate her legitimate concerns about generational patterns from her trauma-induced hypervigilance. She began recognizing her sons as unique individuals whose development she could positively influence, not as potential reincarnations of their father's worst traits. This psychological healing complemented Eleanor's professional evolution, allowing her to take calculated risks she might otherwise have avoided. When an opportunity arose to partner with a community development organization seeking to revitalize struggling business districts, Eleanor committed Rodriguez Financial Solutions as a founding member of the initiative. The Lake City Economic Renaissance Project became her first venture into community development, combining financial consulting with broader economic revitalization strategies. The project connected small businesses with microloans, technical assistance, and collaborative marketing efforts, creating a support ecosystem that helps struggling enterprises stabilize and grow. By 2003, with the twins approaching preschool age, Eleanor had transformed her narrative from victim of Nathan Blackwood's cruelty to innovative financial strategist, empowering marginalized entrepreneurs. The settlement money remained largely untouched in investment accounts for the twins' future, while Eleanor supported her family through her growing business. That September, as Eleanor prepared to enroll Michael and Gabriel in preschool, a Seattle Times notification appeared on her phone. Blackwood Properties announces restructuring amid ongoing financial troubles. The article detailed the company's continued struggles following the Malaysian project collapse, culminating in a board decision to replace Nathan as CEO while retaining him as chairman, essentially a ceremonial demotion that preserved his title while removing operational control. More surprising was the announcement of Blackwood's new CEO, Sarah Westbrook, Nathan's former competitor, whose company had acquired significant Blackwood property stock during the crisis. Eleanor stared at the news, a complex mixture of emotions washing through her. Not vindication or satisfaction, as she might once have expected, but something closer to closure. The man who had once wielded his power like a weapon was experiencing the consequences of his own actions, not through her efforts, but through the natural outcome of his choices. That evening, after putting the twins to bed, Eleanor sat on her small balcony overlooking Lake Washington. The city lights reflected on the dark water, beautiful and distant. Somewhere across that water, in a penthouse or mansion, Nathan Blackwood was confronting the diminishment of his empire. Eleanor felt no urge to contact him, no need to witness his downfall personally. The man who had once dominated her thoughts now occupied an increasingly small corner of her consciousness, relevant only as her son's biological father and a chapter in her past that had forced her to discover her own resilience. You were wrong about me, she whispered to the night air. I was never nothing, and now everyone knows it but you. As if in response, Gabriel called out from his bedroom, his voice small and frightened after a nightmare. Eleanor rose immediately, leaving thoughts of Nathan behind as she went to comfort her son, the true priority, the real future, the living embodiment of her greatest triumph. Nathan Blackwood had tried to erase her. Instead, he had inadvertently pushed her to create something entirely new, a life defined not by its relationship to his power, but by its service to those he would have deemed insignificant. A life of purpose built from the very ashes of his betrayal. It wasn't the ending Eleanor had once imagined for herself. It was something far more meaningful, a continuing story of transformation that she was writing one day. One decision, one small victory at a time. And the best chapters were still to come. Seattle, 2006. A light spring rain misted the windows of the renovated warehouse in South Lake Union that now housed the headquarters of Rodtech Solutions. What had begun as Eleanor's modest financial consultancy had evolved into a specialized firm helping small and medium businesses navigate the increasingly complex digital economy. At 49, Eleanor Rodriguez carried herself with the quiet confidence of a woman who had rebuilt her life brick by determined brick. Her once dark hair now featured distinguished streaks of silver she didn't bother to color, and laugh lines framed eyes that had witnessed both devastation and triumph. The past 7 years had transformed not just her circumstances, but her very essence. "Mom, Gabriel won't give back my Nintendo," Michael's indignant voice carried from her office's adjoining playroom, where the twins were spending the afternoon while their after-school sitter attended a family emergency. Eleanor sighed, setting aside the client proposal she'd been reviewing. At 7, the boys were developing distinct personalities that sometimes clashed spectacularly. Michael, bold and commanding, approached life as a series of challenges to be conquered. Gabriel, thoughtful and perceptive, navigated the world through careful observation and emotional intelligence. "It's still my turn," Gabriel protested as Eleanor entered the playroom. "He always takes it when I'm winning." "I do not." Michael's face flushed with indignation, his expression so reminiscent of Nathan that Eleanor felt a momentary chill. She pushed the thought away. 10 more minutes for Gabriel, then Michael gets his turn. "Michael, why don't you help me organize these client folders while you wait?" Distraction and division of attention. Eleanor's tried and true peacekeeping strategy with her spirited sons. Michael reluctantly followed her back to her desk, his scowl gradually fading as she involved him in important business tasks that made him feel grown up. These moments of motherhood amid professional responsibilities had become Eleanor's normal. Rodtech Solutions had been deliberately structured to accommodate single parenthood, with flexible hours, family-friendly policies, and a small playroom adjacent to her office. Her 15 employees, mostly women, many also parents, appreciated the work culture that recognized their full humanity rather than demanding compartmentalization. Ms. Rodriguez, her assistant, Lydia, appeared in the doorway. "Sarah Westbrook is here for your 2 o'clock. Eleanor straightened in surprise. Her meeting with Westbrook Ventures CEO was scheduled for tomorrow. "She's a day early. She apologizes for the mix-up and understands if you need to reschedule," Lydia offered. Eleanor glanced at Michael, now happily sorting folders by color, and Gabriel, still absorbed in his game. An unexpected meeting with her ex-husband's business rival wasn't ideal timing, but opportunities rarely arrived at perfect moments. "Please show her in," Eleanor decided, "and maybe bring the boys some juice and snacks." Sarah Westbrook entered with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to running boardrooms. At 62, she remained a formidable figure in Seattle's business community, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, and renowned for the strategic brilliance that had allowed her to effectively take control of Blackwood Properties during its crisis. "Eleanor, thank you for accommodating me," Sarah said, extending her hand. "My calendar was completely rearranged when an international client made an unexpected visit." "Of course," Eleanor replied, gesturing toward the seating area away from her desk. "I hope you don't mind some company. My sons are here today." Sarah's eyes warmed as she noticed the boys. "Not at all. These must be Michael and Gabriel. They've grown since the photos in your Seattle business profile last year." The casual reference to recognizing her children caught Eleanor off guard. She hadn't realized Sarah Westbrook paid such close attention to her life. "Mom, who's this lady?" Michael asked directly, approaching with natural confidence. "This is Ms. Westbrook, an important business person I'm meeting with today," Eleanor explained. Michael extended his hand formally, just as Eleanor had taught him. "I'm Michael Rodriguez. That's my brother Gabriel. He's better at video games, but I'm better at soccer." Sarah shook his hand with appropriate seriousness. "Pleased to meet you, Michael. I was quite good at soccer myself. Once upon a time." Gabriel, more cautious with strangers, offered a polite wave from the playroom doorway. Once the boys were settled with snacks and activities, Eleanor and Sarah sat down to discuss business. Westbrook Ventures was considering a new initiative to support mid-sized companies transitioning to comprehensive digital operations, and Rodtech's expertise was potentially valuable to the project. Your model interests me, Sarah said, reviewing Rodtech's portfolio. Most consultancies focus either on the high-end corporate market or simple services for very small businesses. You've carved out the overlooked middle, companies too substantial for basic solutions, but not large enough to interest the major players. Eleanor nodded. It's where I found the greatest need and the least support, especially among minority and women-owned businesses. And now that niche is becoming increasingly valuable as mid-market companies struggle with digital transformation, Sarah's assessment was shrewd. Which brings me to my actual purpose today. This isn't just about the initiative I mentioned. Eleanor tensed slightly. In her experience, unexpected agendas rarely brought good news. I'll be direct, Sarah continued. Blackwood Properties is imploding. The board's attempt to retain Nathan as chairman while limiting his operational control has created a dysfunctional leadership structure. We're preparing to either fully acquire the company or force a complete restructuring. Eleanor maintained a neutral expression, uncertain why Sarah was sharing this information. I appreciate your candor, but I'm no longer connected to Blackwood Properties. Not legally, perhaps. Sarah's gaze was penetrating. But you understand Nathan Blackwood better than most, and you have a unique perspective on the company's culture. More importantly, you've demonstrated exceptional resilience and business acumen in rebuilding after he attempted to destroy you professionally. Eleanor couldn't help but feel a mixture of wariness and curiosity. What exactly are you proposing, Ms. Westbrook? Sarah, please. The older woman leaned forward. I'm proposing a partnership. Westbrook Ventures would acquire a minority stake in Rodtech Solutions, providing capital for expansion. In return, you would consult on our Blackwood acquisition strategy and potentially join the restructured board afterward. The proposal was so unexpected that Eleanor almost laughed. You want me to help take over my ex-husband's company? I want your expertise in digital transformation for mid-market companies, Sarah clarified. The Blackwood situation is secondary, though I won't deny there's a certain poetic justice to having you involved. Eleanor glanced toward the playroom, where Michael and Gabriel were now peacefully drawing together. Why me? There are larger consultancies with more resources. Because you built something authentic from the ground up after being systematically targeted by one of Seattle's most powerful men. That demonstrates extraordinary character and business instinct. Sarah's expression softened slightly. And perhaps because I've followed your story with particular interest, having had my own difficulties with Nathan Blackwood in the past, a piece clicked into place. The Malaysian project, Eleanor realized. Westbrook Ventures was one of the initial investors before Nathan brought in the international consortium. Sarah nodded, a flash of old anger crossing her features. He leveraged our initial investment to attract others, then systematically diluted our position while hiding the project's true status. Classic Blackwood maneuver. The conversation shifted into unexpected territory. Two women comparing experiences with Nathan's business tactics, recognizing patterns and discussing how his approach had evolved over the years. He's always been brilliant at identifying others' vulnerabilities and exploiting them, Sarah observed. The difference is that he's grown increasingly reckless, believing his own mythology of invincibility. Eleanor considered Sarah's proposal carefully. The business opportunity was substantial. Rodtech had reached a growth plateau where additional capital would enable expansion into new markets. But partnering with Westbrook meant permanently linking her professional future to the Nathan chapter she'd worked so hard to move beyond. I need time to consider this, Eleanor said finally. There are many factors to weigh, including how any association with Blackwood Properties might affect my sons. Of course, Sarah handed Eleanor her personal card. Take whatever time you need. This isn't a limited time offer. As Sarah prepared to leave, Gabriel emerged from the playroom, studying the visitor with curious eyes. "Are you friends with our dad?" he asked unexpectedly. The question hung in the air, laden with complications neither child could understand. Eleanor felt her heart constrict. Sarah knelt to Gabriel's level, her response gentle but honest. "No, I'm not friends with your father, but I have great respect for your mother and the wonderful job she's doing raising you and your brother." Gabriel nodded, accepting this answer with the solemn thoughtfulness that characterized him. "She works really hard. The best people usually do," Sarah replied, straightening and offering Eleanor a parting handshake. "Think about my proposal. I believe we could accomplish something significant together." After Sarah departed, Eleanor sat with the twins on the office sofa, suddenly overwhelmed by the crossroads before her. The Westbrook partnership offered tremendous opportunity, but also reopened doors she deliberately closed. "Mom, are you okay?" Gabriel asked, his emotional intuition detecting her inner conflict. "Just thinking about some grown-up decisions," Eleanor assured him, pulling both boys close. "Nothing for you to worry about." But that evening, after the twins were asleep, Eleanor found herself pacing her apartment, weighing Sarah's proposal against her carefully constructed separation from the Blackwood world. The partnership made excellent business sense. Rodtech needed capital to expand its innovative model, and Westbrook Ventures offered that without the strings typically attached to venture funding. The potential board position with a restructured Blackwood Properties would provide high-level corporate governance experience that Eleanor's resume currently lacked. Yet something deeper troubled her, not fear of Nathan, but fear of allowing her story to once again be defined in relation to his. Eleanor had spent 7 years building an identity independent of the Blackwood connection. Did accepting Sarah's offer risk unraveling that work Eleanor called the one person whose perspective she trusted implicitly on such matters? Dr. Margaret Chen, who had become both mentor and friend over the past 5 years. "You're approaching this as an either-or proposition," Dr. Chen observed after Eleanor explained the situation. "Either you accept the Westbrook partnership and risk being defined by your past with Nathan, or you reject it and protect your independent identity." "Isn't that the choice?" Eleanor asked. "Only if you believe your identity is so fragile that proximity to your past could unravel it," Dr. Chen replied thoughtfully. "The Eleanor I know has integrated that difficult chapter rather than merely escaping it. Your strength isn't in avoiding Nathan Blackwood's orbit. It's in maintaining your autonomy within it or outside it as you choose." The reframing struck Eleanor with the force of revelation. Her rejection of anything connected to Nathan wasn't a sign of healing, but of continued fear. Fear that her hard-won identity might prove insufficient against his influence. True liberation wasn't about distance. It was about the freedom to make choices based on current opportunities rather than past wounds. "Consider the message this sends your sons as well," Dr. Chen added. "They'll eventually confront their father's existence and the circumstances of your separation. Showing them that you can engage with that reality from a position of strength rather than avoidance offers a powerful model." By morning, Eleanor had reached her decision. She would accept Sarah's partnership offer, negotiating terms that protected Rodtech's unique culture while enabling strategic growth. She would consult on the Blackwood acquisition, but defer the board position decision until after the restructuring, allowing her to assess the situation with greater clarity. Most importantly, she would approach these opportunities as Eleanor Rodriguez, CEO of Rodtech Solutions, not as Nathan Blackwood's ex-wife seeking vindication. The Westbrook partnership transformed Rodtech's trajectory over the following year. With Sarah's backing, Eleanor expanded operations to Portland and San Francisco, focusing on industries undergoing rapid digital evolution: healthcare, education, and sustainable manufacturing. Rodtech's client base tripled, and its workforce grew to 35 employees across 3 locations. Eleanor's consultation on the Blackwood acquisition proved valuable beyond expectations. Her insights into the company's operational weaknesses and cultural dysfunction helped Westbrook navigate the complex restructuring process. By mid-2007, Westbrook Ventures had achieved controlling interest in Blackwood Properties through a combination of stock purchases and strategic alliances with other investors. Nathan remained as chairman, but his authority had been reduced to largely ceremonial functions. According to Sarah's reports, he focused primarily on maintaining his lavish lifestyle and social standing, while the company he'd built operated increasingly without his input. Eleanor maintained careful distance from these developments, ensuring her involvement remained strictly professional and behind the scenes. The twins, now in second grade at Seattle's progressive Cascadia Elementary School, remained unaware of their mother's connection to their biological father's business affairs. This delicate balance was disrupted in September 2007, when Michael came home from school with a bloody nose and a detention slip. "He said my dad left because I wasn't good enough," Michael shouted when Eleanor pressed for an explanation. "Tyler Jenkins said his dad told him that my dad didn't want me and Gabriel because we were mistakes." Eleanor felt the blood drain from her face. Tyler Jenkins, as in Connor Jenkins' son. Connor Jenkins was a mid-level executive at Blackwood Properties, one of Nathan's loyal lieutenants who had survived the restructuring. The targeted nature of the taunt suggested deliberate adult involvement rather than random schoolyard cruelty. "I had to hit him, Mom," Michael insisted, tears welling in his eyes. He was saying it to make Gabriel cry. Powering Gabriel, quieter as always, sat at the kitchen table with hunched shoulders. "Is it true?" he asked softly. "Did our dad think we were mistakes?" The question pierced Eleanor's heart. She had known this moment would come eventually, when the carefully constructed narrative of "your father wasn't ready to be a parent" would require more complex truths. She hadn't expected it to arrive through deliberate cruelty, potentially orchestrated by Nathan himself. "Come here, both of you," Eleanor said, gathering her sons at the kitchen table. "It's time we talked more about your father and what happened before you were born." With age-appropriate honesty, Eleanor explained the basics. She and Nathan had been married. When she became pregnant, their marriage was already ending. Nathan had chosen not to be part of their lives. She omitted the cruelest details while emphasizing the most important truth. "Your father's choices were about him, not about you," she said firmly. "Adults sometimes make decisions based on their own fears and limitations. That has nothing to do with how amazing and loved you both are." Michael, still angry, demanded more. "But why doesn't he ever try to see us other kids with divorced parents still see both parents?" "That was his choice," Eleanor answered carefully. "Some people aren't ready or able to be parents, even when they have children." "What's his name?" Gabriel asked suddenly. "You never say his name?" Eleanor hesitated, weighing the implications of this threshold they were crossing. "His name is Nathan Blackwood. He owns a company that builds big buildings downtown." Michael's eyes widened. "The Blackwood Tower with the pointy top. That's our dad's building. He helped build it." "Yes." Eleanor watched her sons process this information, witnessing the moment their father transformed from abstract absence to concrete reality. "Does he know about us?" Gabriel asked, his perceptiveness cutting to the heart of the matter. "Yes," Eleanor admitted. "He knows about you. And he still doesn't want to see us." Michael's confusion was giving way to hurt. Eleanor chose her words with extreme care. "He made his choice years ago, and that reflects his limitations, not your worth. The people who choose to love you, me, Grandma Carmen, our friends and community, we see how amazing you both are." The conversation continued into the evening, with questions Eleanor had anticipated for years, but still found painful to answer. She maintained the delicate balance between honesty and protection, allowing the twins to express their feelings while shielding them from the full brutality of Nathan's rejection. By bedtime, Michael's anger had partially subsided, replaced by a protective determination toward his brother. Gabriel, more deeply affected, grew quiet and thoughtful, processing emotions too complex for his 7-year-old capacity. After tucking them in, Eleanor made 2 calls, the first to the school principal, requesting a meeting about targeted bullying and adult-influenced behavior. The second to Sarah Westbrook, Connor Jenkins needs to be dealt with, Eleanor said without preamble when Sarah answered. His son is taunting my boys at school with information about their father that could only have come from deliberate adult discussion. Sarah's response was immediate and resolute. I'll handle it personally. Jenkins reports directly to the restructured executive committee now. 2 days later, Connor Jenkins was transferred to Blackwood's Cleveland office, a lateral move presented as an opportunity that was effectively an exile from Nathan's inner circle. His family relocated before the end of the month, removing Tyler from Cascadia Elementary in the twins' daily life. The swift consequences demonstrated both Sarah's influence and her commitment to protecting Eleanor's family. It also signaled something Eleanor had begun to suspect: Nathan was actively losing power within his own company, unable to shield even his loyal supporters from the new leadership's decisions. This shifting power dynamic became relevant sooner than expected. In November 2007, as the early tremors of what would become the global financial crisis began rippling through real estate markets, Sarah approached Eleanor with a new proposition. The board wants you, Sarah stated during their private lunch meeting, not as a consultant, but as a full member of the Blackwood Properties Board of Directors, specifically overseeing our digital transformation initiatives. Eleanor set down her fork, genuinely surprised. That's unexpected. Nathan would never allow it. Nathan no longer has veto power over board appointments, Sarah replied with satisfaction. The recent quarterly losses have weakened his position further. The institutional investors are demanding new perspectives, particularly in modernizing our operations. And they specifically want me, Nathan's ex-wife. They want Eleanor Rodriguez, the digital transformation expert who successfully guided dozens of companies through technological evolution. Sarah corrected firmly. Your history with Nathan is irrelevant to your qualifications, though I won't pretend there isn't a certain satisfaction in the symmetry. Eleanor considered the offer carefully. Joining Blackwood's board would represent both professional advancement and a symbolic reclamation, taking a formal place within the company that Nathan had once used as a weapon against her. It would also inevitably bring her into direct contact with Nathan himself for the first time in years. How would this affect the twins? Eleanor asked, her priority unchanged despite the tempting opportunity. Board membership would remain confidential until the formal announcement, Sarah assured her. And while Nathan attends meetings as chairman, your interactions would be strictly professional and limited to quarterly sessions. I need to think about this, Eleanor said, and discuss it with the boys. They've just learned about Nathan's identity. Adding this complication requires careful consideration. Sarah nodded respectfully. Take your time. The official vote isn't until January. That evening, Eleanor discussed the possibility with Michael and Gabriel in simplified terms, explaining that she might work with the company their father had started, helping it improve how it used computers and technology. Their reactions reflected their distinct personalities. Michael thought it sounded cool that his mother would be important enough to tell his father's company what to do. Gabriel, more sensitive to emotional undercurrents, worried about whether it would make Eleanor sad to work with people connected to their father. Sometimes in life, we have opportunities that are complicated, Eleanor explained. This would be good for my career and use my skills to help a lot of people, but it does mean occasionally being in meetings where your father is present. Will we have to see him? Gabriel asked, the question revealing his deeper concern. Absolutely not, Eleanor assured both boys firmly. This would be my professional work, completely separate from our family life. You would never be involved or expected to interact with him in any way. This boundary seemed to reassure them, though Gabriel remained thoughtful. Later, as Eleanor tucked him in, he asked the question she'd been anticipating. Mom, does it make you sad that we look like him sometimes? The perceptiveness of children never ceased to amaze her. Gabriel had intuited one of her unspoken struggles, the occasional jolt when Michael's determined expression or Gabriel's analytical gaze echoed Nathan's features. No, sweetheart, she answered honestly. Sometimes it surprises me, but it never makes me sad. You and Michael are your own unique people. You might have some physical features that resemble your father, but who you are, your kindness, your thoughtfulness, your creativity, those come from the choices you make and the values we share. Gabriel considered this, then nodded with the seriousness that characterized him. I think you should take the job if you want it. Michael and I will be okay. Eleanor kissed his forehead, humbled by her son's emotional wisdom. Thank you for caring about my feelings. That's one of the many things that makes you so special. After consulting further with Dr. Chen and Sophia Klein, now semi-retired, but still a trusted advisor, Eleanor accepted the board position in December 2007. The appointment would become official in January, with public announcement scheduled for February after the company's quarterly earnings report. The intervening weeks allowed Eleanor to prepare professionally and psychologically for her new role. She researched Blackwood Properties' current projects, studied the existing board dynamics, and developed preliminary recommendations for digital infrastructure improvements across the company's operations. She also worked with Dr. Chen to establish healthy psychological boundaries for encountering Nathan in a professional context. They developed specific strategies for managing potential provocations or attempts to undermine her authority, focusing on maintaining her hard-won equanimity regardless of Nathan's behavior. Remember that your presence on the board represents a complete reversal of the power dynamic he tried to establish, Dr. Chen advised. You're not entering his territory as a supplicant or victim. You're joining as a peer with expertise the company needs. That shift alone will likely unsettle him deeply. The morning of her first board meeting arrived with January rain lashing against Eleanor's office windows. She dressed with particular care, choosing a tailored navy suit that projected authority without ostentation, accessorized with a single piece of significant jewelry, a vintage silver and turquoise pendant that had belonged to her grandmother, a subtle reminder of her heritage and personal strength. Sarah met Eleanor in the Blackwood Tower lobby, escorting her to the executive elevator with quiet confidence. The other board members are looking forward to meeting you, she assured Eleanor. Most were appointed after the restructuring and have no particular loyalty to Nathan. Some. The boardroom occupied half of the tower's 60th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Seattle obscured today by low-hanging clouds. 8 people were already seated around the massive mahogany table when Eleanor and Sarah entered. Most were engaged in pre-meeting conversation, reviewing documents or checking phones. Nathan sat at the far end, still in the chairman's position but noticeably isolated. At 54, he remained physically impressive, his once dark hair now distinguished silver at the temples, his posture commanding. But subtle changes were visible to Eleanor's perceptive eye, a certain tightness around his mouth, a defensive quality to his posture, the slightly too tight fit of his expensive suit suggesting recent weight gain. When he looked up and saw Eleanor, his expression froze in a microsecond of genuine shock before he recovered, mask sliding back into place. Eleanor felt a momentary surge of satisfaction at having disrupted his composure, however briefly. Sarah made the introductions with practiced ease. Board members, I'm pleased to introduce our newest director, Eleanor Rodriguez, CEO of RodTech Solutions and our incoming Digital Transformation Committee Chair. Eleanor brings extensive expertise in transitioning traditional operations to integrated digital platforms, with particular success in property management modernization. Eleanor greeted each board member individually, maintaining professional warmth while approaching Nathan with the same courteous detachment she offered everyone else. Mr. Blackwood, she said simply, extending her hand with steady confidence. Ms. Rodriguez, he replied after a barely perceptible hesitation, his handshake deliberately firm. This is unexpected. The business world is full of surprises, Eleanor observed mildly, taking her assigned seat across the table, a position that would require Nathan to look directly at her throughout the meeting. The 3-hour session proceeded with the structured formality typical of corporate governance. Eleanor participated appropriately, offering insights when relevant to her expertise while carefully observing the power dynamics around the table. Nathan remained largely silent during discussions of financial performance, speaking primarily on matters related to the company's public image and relationships with traditional clients. His diminished influence was evident in subtle ways: the lack of deference from newer board members, the occasional glances exchanged when he spoke, the gentle but firm redirections from Sarah when his comments strayed from agenda items. Eleanor maintained professional composure throughout, neither avoiding Nathan's occasional glances nor engaging beyond necessary interaction. She presented her initial assessment of the company's digital infrastructure with confident expertise, outlining opportunities for integration and modernization that would significantly reduce operational costs. The presentation earned approving nods from most board members and even grudging acknowledgement from Nathan, who recognized solid business strategy despite his personal animosity. As the meeting concluded, Eleanor gathered her materials efficiently, preparing to exit with Sarah. Nathan approached as other board members dispersed, his expression unreadable. "A word, Ms. Rodriguez?" he requested, gesturing toward a small seating area near the windows. Eleanor glanced at Sarah, who raised an eyebrow in silent question. "I'll be fine," Eleanor assured her. "I'll meet you downstairs." And once they were relatively alone, Nathan's carefully maintained facade slipped slightly, revealing the simmering anger beneath. "This is Westbrook's idea of psychological warfare," he asked, voice low but intense. "Placing my ex-wife on my company's board. Your perception is telling," Eleanor replied calmly. "This isn't about you, Nathan. I was approached because of my professional expertise in an area where Blackwood Properties needs significant improvement. And your history with me had nothing to do with it." His skepticism was palpable. "I can't speak to others' motivations," Eleanor said with genuine indifference. "I accepted the position because it represents a valuable professional opportunity and allows me to contribute meaningfully to an important Seattle institution." Nathan studied her with narrowed eyes, searching for vulnerabilities or hidden agendas. "You've changed," he observed finally. "That's what growth looks like." Eleanor replied simply, "We all change with time and experience." A flicker of something, not quite regret, but perhaps recognition, crossed his features. "How are the boys?" he asked unexpectedly. The question caught Eleanor off guard. In 8 years, Nathan had never once inquired about his sons. She considered how to respond, protective instincts warring with the factual reality that he was their biological father. "Michael and Gabriel are thriving," she said finally, offering the basic truth without elaboration. "They're healthy, intelligent, and kind-hearted." Nathan nodded slowly, something unidentifiable working behind his eyes. "They know about me now. Connor Jenkins' boy made sure of that." The implication was clear. Nathan knew about the school incident and Jenkins's subsequent transfer. Whether he had orchestrated it or merely learned of it afterward remained unclear. "They know the essential facts," Eleanor confirmed, "that you're their biological father who chose not to be involved in their lives. A simplified version," Nathan noted dryly. "An age-appropriate one," Eleanor corrected. "They're 7 years old. Nathan, they don't need to understand the full complexity of adult choices and consequences yet." He absorbed this with a slight nod, then asked the question Eleanor had been anticipating throughout this strange exchange. "Do they look like me?" The query held vulnerability Eleanor wouldn't have believed Nathan capable of expressing. It was the first hint she'd ever seen that he might occasionally wonder about the children he'd rejected. "Michael has your jawline and determination," she acknowledged. "Gabriel has your analytical mind, though his emotional intelligence is entirely his own. They both have your height for their age." Nathan seemed to process this information with unexpected thoughtfulness. "Will they ever?" he began, then stopped himself, recalibrating. "No, that's not my place to ask." Eleanor waited, allowing the awkward silence to stretch between them. "I should have handled things differently," Nathan said finally, the closest thing to an admission of wrongdoing she'd ever heard from him. "Not about the divorce itself, but the surrounding circumstances." "Yes, you should have." Eleanor agreed simply, neither accepting the quasi-apology nor rejecting it. But that's in the past. What matters now is that we maintain professional courtesy in our current roles. Nathan straightened, mask sliding back into place. Of course. Welcome to the board. Ms. Rodriguez, I look forward to your contributions to Blackwood Properties' continued evolution. The formulaic corporate pleasantry signaled the end of their personal exchange. Eleanor nodded acknowledgement and turned to leave, feeling neither triumph nor distress at this unexpected encounter, only a surprising sense of closure. As she rode the elevator down to the lobby where Sarah waited, Eleanor reflected on the strange circular journey that had brought her back to this building, this company, this man. But as someone fundamentally transformed, 8 years ago, she had fled these same offices in tears, betrayed and desperate. Today she returned as a respected professional, secure in her identity and purpose. How did it go? Sarah asked when Eleanor joined her in the lobby. Better than expected, Eleanor replied truthfully. We established workable professional boundaries. And personally, Eleanor considered the question carefully. I think we both recognize that we're no longer the same people who caused each other such damage years ago. He's diminished in ways that have nothing to do with me, and I've grown in ways that have nothing to do with him. Sarah nodded with understanding. The best revenge isn't making someone pay. It's moving forward so completely that the past loses its power entirely. It wasn't about revenge, Eleanor clarified as they exited into the January rain. It was about reclaiming something I let him take from me, my belief in my own worth and capabilities. And as Seattle's familiar rain fell around her, Eleanor Rodriguez walked away from Blackwood Tower, not as Nathan's victim or victor, but simply as herself, a woman who had rebuilt her life on her own terms and found something more valuable than revenge along the way, genuine freedom from the past that had once defined her. Spring 2009 brought significant transitions to the Rodriguez household. Michael and Gabriel, now approaching their 10th birthday, were completing 4th grade at Cascadia Elementary with distinct academic trajectories. Michael excelled in mathematics and leadership activities, while Gabriel showed remarkable talent for creative writing and emotional intelligence. Their different strengths occasionally created tension, with Michael growing frustrated by his brother's quieter approach to challenges and Gabriel withdrawing when he couldn't match Michael's natural assertiveness. Eleanor worked constantly to help them appreciate their complementary qualities rather than competing directly. The global financial crisis had paradoxically strengthened RodTech Solutions, as mid-sized companies sought cost-effective digital solutions to weather economic turbulence. Eleanor had expanded the firm to 40 employees across 3 cities, with growing national recognition for their innovative approaches to digital transformation. Her board position at Blackwood Properties had evolved from controversial appointment to valued leadership role. The Digital Transformation Committee she chaired had successfully modernized the company's operations, generating significant cost savings during the economic downturn. Even Nathan had grudgingly acknowledged the initiative's success during quarterly meetings. Their professional interactions remained strictly bounded, with no further personal conversations after that first exchange. Nathan attended board meetings with diminishing frequency, often traveling to maintain the company's international relationships, while domestic operations increasingly fell to the professional management team Sarah had assembled. This delicate equilibrium shifted unexpectedly when the twins' elementary school announced its annual father-child camping weekend, a long-standing tradition that Eleanor had previously navigated by sending the boys with her friend Richard, a divorced father who included them alongside his own son. This year, however, Michael balked at the arrangement. "I don't want to go with Mr. Torres again," he declared over dinner. "I want to know about our real dad." Eleanor set down her fork carefully. "What specifically do you want to know?" "Everything." Michael's frustration was evident. "The other kids have pictures and stories about their dads, even the divorced ones. We have nothing. It's like he's a ghost." Gabriel remained quiet, but his attentive posture indicated equal interest in this conversation. Eleanor recognized the developmental milestone this represented. At nearly 10, the twins were entering the age where identity questions naturally intensified, especially regarding absent parents. She had prepared for this moment, gradually collecting age-appropriate information and photographs she could share when they were ready. "You're old enough now for more details," she acknowledged. "After dinner, we can look at some pictures and I can tell you more about Nathan Blackwood." The photo album Eleanor retrieved from her closet contained carefully selected images from her brief marriage, formal events, vacation photos, professional headshots of Nathan, nothing that romanticized their relationship, but enough to give the twins a concrete sense of their biological father's appearance and presence. "He looks like Michael," Gabriel observed, studying a photograph of Nathan at a charity gala. "Same eyes and chin," Eleanor agreed. "And you have his analytical expression, Gabriel, though you use it much more kindly." The boys examined each photograph with intense curiosity, asking questions about Nathan's background, education, and career. Eleanor answered truthfully but selectively, emphasizing factual information while avoiding both demonization and idealization. "Does he ever ask about us?" Gabriel finally asked the question that clearly weighed on both boys' minds. Eleanor considered how to answer honestly without causing unnecessary pain. "He has asked about your health and well-being," she said, referring to that single boardroom inquiry 2 years earlier. "But he made a decision before you were born that he wasn't prepared to be a father, and he has maintained that position." "But why?" Michael demanded, frustration evident. "What's wrong with us?" "Absolutely nothing," Eleanor assured him firmly. "Nathan's decision reflects his limitations, not your value. Some people lack the capacity for parental commitment, often because of how they themselves were raised." She explained in age-appropriate terms about Nathan's own difficult relationship with his father, his focus on professional achievement above personal connections, and his discomfort with emotional vulnerability. "Could we meet him someday?" Gabriel asked quietly. "Just to know who he is." The question Eleanor had been dreading. She took a deep breath, weighing her protective instincts against her son's legitimate need for understanding. "When you're older, if you still want to meet him, we can discuss that possibility," she said carefully. "But it would need to be a carefully considered decision that takes everyone's well-being into account." The conversation continued into the evening, with Eleanor answering questions as honestly as possible while maintaining appropriate boundaries. She was struck by how differently the twins processed the information, Michael with outward anger at Nathan's rejection, Gabriel with quieter but deeper questioning about his own identity. Later that night, after the boys were asleep, Eleanor called Dr. Chen for guidance on navigating this new phase. "They're entering the age where abstract understanding becomes possible," Dr. Chen observed. "They can begin to comprehend that their father's rejection wasn't about them as individuals, but about his own limitations. That's cognitively sophisticated, but emotionally challenging." "Michael wants to be nothing like him," Eleanor reported. "Gabriel seems more curious, almost seeking connection despite everything." "Those reactions reflect their natural temperaments," Dr. Chen noted. "The important thing is that you're providing honest information within a secure emotional framework. They know that questioning Nathan's absence doesn't threaten their relationship with you." Over the following weeks, the twins processed this new information in characteristic ways. Michael channeled his feelings into competitive activities, pushing himself harder in soccer and mathematics, as if to prove his worth through achievement. Gabriel grew temporarily withdrawn, writing intensely personal stories that Eleanor discovered in his notebook, narratives about boys searching for missing pieces of themselves. Eleanor supported both responses while maintaining open conversation, assuring the twins repeatedly that Nathan's absence reflected his limitations, not theirs. She enlisted both Richard Torres and her brother-in-law Marco to provide positive male mentorship, ensuring the boys had healthy models of adult masculinity despite their father's absence. The father-child camping weekend eventually proceeded with Richard again, including the twins. But with a new understanding between Eleanor and her sons about the complex reality of their family structure, The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship, the beginning of a more mature understanding of their history and identity. This developmental milestone coincided with significant changes at Blackwood Properties. The recession had hit commercial real estate particularly hard, and the company faced unprecedented financial pressure despite the cost-saving measures Eleanor's committee had implemented. In June 2009, the board called an emergency session to address deteriorating market conditions. Eleanor arrived to find tension permeating the boardroom. Sarah looked particularly grim as she distributed financial projections for the coming quarter. The Las Vegas development is underwater by $40 million, she explained, referring to a luxury residential project Nathan had championed against advice from financial advisors. The lenders are threatening to call the construction loans, which would trigger cross-default provisions on our other properties. The potential domino effect could destabilize the entire company. Board members exchanged concerned glances as Sarah outlined potential responses, ranging from strategic bankruptcy for specific subsidiaries to emergency asset sales. Nathan, present for this critical meeting, maintained stony silence during the financial presentation. When he finally spoke, his focus was characteristically misplaced. The Las Vegas market will recover, he insisted. Luxury always rebounds first. We need to weather this temporary downturn rather than panic selling premium assets. Eleanor studied the financial projections carefully, recognizing the severity of the situation. This isn't about market philosophy, she noted, addressing the broader board rather than Nathan directly. It's simple mathematics. The carrying costs of maintaining these developments through an extended recovery exceed our projected liquidity by the third quarter. The CFO nodded confirmation. Ms. Rodriguez is correct. Without significant intervention, we face potential insolvency by September. The meeting devolved into increasingly tense debate about appropriate responses. Nathan advocated borrowing against profitable properties to maintain the struggling developments, while most board members favored strategic divestiture of the most troubled assets. We didn't build this company by running from challenges, Nathan argued, frustration evident in his tone. Blackwood Properties has weathered downturns before. Not of this magnitude, Sarah countered, and not with this level of concentrated exposure in luxury developments. As the discussion continued, Eleanor observed Nathan with professional detachment. His resistance to reality wasn't surprising. The Las Vegas project represented his vision, his judgment. Abandoning it meant acknowledging a fundamental error in his business instincts. When asked for her perspective, Eleanor focused on practical solutions rather than assigning blame. Digital infrastructure investments have reduced our operational costs by 22% over the past 18 months, she noted. But technology optimization can't compensate for fundamental asset devaluation. We need to restructure our portfolio based on current market realities rather than pre-recession projections. Her measured, data-driven approach resonated with the financially oriented board members. By meeting's end, the board voted 7-2 to implement strategic asset sales, with only Nathan and his one remaining loyal board ally opposing the plan. As the meeting adjourned, Eleanor gathered her materials efficiently, planning a quick departure to attend Gabriel's school poetry, reading that afternoon. Nathan approached as she organized her portfolio, his expression tightly controlled. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "You've successfully helped dismantle what took me 30 years to build." Eleanor met his gaze evenly. The market is dismantling over-leveraged luxury developments nationwide. Nathan, this isn't personal. It's financial reality. Easy for you to say when you have no emotional investment in this company. His voice carried the edge of genuine bitterness. This was my life's work. For a moment, Eleanor glimpsed the vulnerability beneath his anger, the profound loss of identity as his creation faced dismemberment. Despite everything he had done to her, she felt a flicker of empathy for this aspect of his experience. The company will survive because of these difficult decisions, she pointed out. That's ultimately more important than preserving any individual's vision, including yours or mine. Nathan studied her with an unreadable expression. You've become quite the pragmatic businesswoman, Far from the idealistic accountant I married. Experience changes everyone, Eleanor replied simply. Some adapt, some resist. She glanced at her watch, conscious of the time. I need to leave. My son has a poetry reading this afternoon. Gabriel, Nathan said unexpectedly. He's the writer. The fact that he remembered this detail from their brief conversation years earlier surprised Eleanor. Yes, he's quite talented. An awkward silence stretched between them, laden with the weight of their complex history and the sons who connected them biologically, if not emotionally. They must be what, 10 now? Nathan asked, his tone difficult to interpret. Their birthday is next month, Eleanor confirmed, uncertain where this conversation was heading. Nathan nodded slowly, seeming to contemplate something significant. Eleanor, I know I have no right to ask anything regarding the boys, but he hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. Would it be possible to see a recent photograph? The request caught Eleanor completely off guard. In 10 years, Nathan had never expressed this level of interest in the twins' existence, let alone their appearance or development. Why now? She asked directly. Nathan's expression reflected genuine complexity, not manipulation or strategic calculation, but something more human than Eleanor had witnessed from him in years. The company was supposed to be my legacy, he said quietly. As that grows increasingly uncertain, I find myself thinking about other aspects of legacy. Eleanor considered the request carefully. On one hand, Nathan had forfeited any claim to information about the twins through his complete abdication of parental responsibility. On the other, the boys themselves had recently expressed curiosity about their biological father. I need to think about this, she said finally. Any sharing of information about Michael and Gabriel needs to prioritize their well-being, not your curiosity or sense of legacy. Nathan accepted this boundary with surprising grace. I understand. It was presumptuous to ask. As Eleanor turned to leave, he added, for what it's worth, I recognize that you've done an exceptional job raising them on your own. That's evident even from the little you've shared. The unexpected acknowledgement lingered in Eleanor's thoughts as she drove to Gabriel's school. Nathan's apparent interest in the twins, after a decade of deliberate absence, raised complex questions about motivation and timing. Was this genuine reflection prompted by his professional setbacks, or merely another manipulation? Eleanor shared the interaction with Dr. Chen during their next session, seeking perspective on Nathan's request and her own mixed response. People rarely change fundamentally, Dr. Chen observed, but circumstances can prompt genuine reassessment of priorities. Nathan is experiencing significant loss of identity and control in his professional life, which often triggers reflection about life choices and legacy. So this could be genuine introspection rather than manipulation. It could be both simultaneously, Dr. Chen suggested. Human motivation is rarely pure. The question is whether limited engagement serves your son's interests, regardless of Nathan's motivation. This framing helped Eleanor approach the situation with greater clarity. After careful consideration and consultation with Sophia Klein, Eleanor decided to send Nathan a single recent photograph of the twins at their school science fair, accompanied by a brief note explaining that any further sharing of information would require demonstrated consistency of interest and respect for established boundaries. Nathan's response came a week later, a formal thank you note acknowledging receipt of the photograph with no additional requests or commentary. The restrained response suggested either respect for Eleanor's boundaries or loss of interest after momentary curiosity. Either way, it allowed the matter to rest without further complication. The twins' 10th birthday in May 2009 marked another milestone in their development. Eleanor organized a celebration at the local rock climbing gym, inviting classmates and the supportive community of friends who had become their extended family. Michael attacked the climbing walls with characteristic determination, while Gabriel approached the challenge more methodically, analyzing each route before attempting it. Watching her sons navigate these literal and figurative ascents, Eleanor felt profound gratitude for their healthy development despite the complicated circumstances of their early years. The boys were thriving academically and socially, forming their own identities while maintaining the close bond that had sustained them from birth. That evening, after the excitement of the party had subsided, Eleanor presented the twins with special gifts she'd been planning for months, journals bound in leather with their initials embossed on the covers. These are for recording your thoughts, questions, and experiences, she explained. Growing up involves making sense of your unique story, and writing can help with that process. Gabriel embraced the journal immediately, understanding intuitively its purpose for self-expression. Michael was less certain until Eleanor explained that many great athletes and leaders kept journals to track their progress and set goals. As the twins explored their gifts, Eleanor shared her own journal from when she was their age, showing them her childhood handwriting and early dreams of becoming a business lady who would make important decisions. "You did it, Mom," Michael observed with pride. "You're exactly what you wanted to be." "Not exactly," Eleanor admitted with a smile. "Life gave me some unexpected turns, including you two, the best surprise I never planned for." "Was it hard?" Gabriel asked suddenly. "Raising us alone when you didn't expect to?" The directness of the question reflected Gabriel's growing emotional maturity. Eleanor considered her answer carefully, wanting to honor their ability to handle more complex truths while maintaining appropriate boundaries. "It was challenging," she acknowledged. "There were times when I was very tired or worried about money or uncertain if I was making the right decisions. But you two gave me a reason to keep going, to build something better than what we started with." "Are you glad our dad left?" Michael asked, the question revealing his ongoing struggle to reconcile Nathan's rejection. Eleanor drew both boys close. "I'm sad about the pain his choices caused, but I'm grateful for the life we've built together. Sometimes the hardest challenges lead to unexpected strength and joy." This honest framework helped the twins process their complicated feelings about Nathan's absence. Rather than framing it as either a tragedy or a blessing, Eleanor acknowledged its complexity while emphasizing their family's resilience. The conversation marked another step in their evolving understanding of their unique family story, not defined by absence or loss, but by the conscious choices and connections they had built together. As spring turned to summer, Eleanor continued balancing her expanding business responsibilities with attentive parenting. Rod Tech Solutions opened a fourth office in Chicago, extending its reach nationally while maintaining its specialized focus on mid-market digital transformation. Eleanor's board position at Blackwood Properties required increasing attention as the company navigated ongoing financial challenges, implementing the strategic asset restructuring plan despite Nathan's continued resistance. This professional momentum was interrupted in August by an unexpected development. Nathan Blackwood suffered a heart attack while meeting with investors in New York. Eleanor learned of the event through Sarah, who called from the airport en route to New York where Nathan had been hospitalized. "It was significant but not immediately life-threatening," Sarah explained. "Doctors are recommending bypass surgery once he's stabilized. As a board member, you should be aware, but there's no action required on your part." Eleanor absorbed this information with surprising emotional complexity. The man who had once been the center of her life, then her greatest adversary, now existed in a strange middle territory, neither entirely personal nor completely professional in her consciousness. "Is there family with him?" she asked, realizing she knew nothing about Nathan's current personal circumstances. "That's actually part of the situation," Sarah replied with audible tension. "His third wife filed for divorce last month. His sister is flying in from London, but she's not expected until tomorrow." The image of Nathan alone in a hospital room during a life-threatening crisis stirred unexpected compassion in Eleanor. Despite everything, she wouldn't wish such isolation on anyone during their most vulnerable moments. "Thank you for letting me know," she said simply. "Please keep me updated on his condition." After ending the call, Eleanor sat quietly in her office, processing her mixed emotions. The news prompted neither satisfaction nor distress, but rather a reflective awareness of life's impermanence and the strange connections that persist beyond active relationships. She decided not to share the information with the twins immediately, wanting more details about Nathan's prognosis before determining how or whether to discuss his health crisis with them. Their recent interest in their biological father had added complexity to such communications. That evening, however, the decision was taken from her hands when Michael discovered the news while searching online for information about Blackwood Tower for a school project. "Mom," he called from the family computer, "it says Nathan Blackwood had a heart attack. Is he going to die?" Eleanor found both twins staring at the Seattle Business Journal website, which featured a breaking news banner about Nathan's condition. "His doctors are taking good care of him," Eleanor assured them, sitting down to address the situation directly. "Heart attacks are serious, but many people recover completely, especially when they receive prompt medical attention, as he did." "Should we do something?" Gabriel asked, his natural empathy extending even to the father who had rejected him. "Like send a card or something." The question touched Eleanor deeply, revealing Gabriel's inherent compassion despite never having received any from Nathan. "That's very thoughtful," she acknowledged. "If you'd like to send good wishes, we can certainly do that. I'll find out the best way to get a message to him." Michael looked conflicted, still processing his more complicated feelings toward Nathan. Would he even want to hear from us? He never wanted us before. Sometimes when people face serious health challenges, they think differently about their lives, Eleanor explained carefully. But it's entirely your choice whether to reach out. There's no right or wrong decision here. After discussion, the twins decided to send a simple card expressing hopes for Nathan's recovery, signed with just their first names. Eleanor arranged to have it delivered through Sarah, maintaining appropriate boundaries while allowing the boys to express their genuine concern. Nathan underwent successful triple bypass surgery 3 days later. His recovery progressed well enough for discharge to a private rehabilitation facility after a week in the hospital. Eleanor received formal updates through board communications, but no personal response to the twins' card. Life continued its forward momentum through the fall, with the twins starting 5th grade and Rodtech navigating the ongoing economic challenges affecting their client base. Eleanor maintained her board responsibilities remotely during Nathan's medical leave, as Blackwood Properties continued implementing its restructuring plan under Sarah's steady leadership. In November, 3 months after his heart attack, Nathan returned to Seattle and resumed limited professional responsibilities. His first board appearance was noticeably different. He seemed physically diminished, his formerly commanding presence muted by the lingering effects of his health crisis. He participated minimally in discussions, deferring to management recommendations rather than asserting his historical authority. After the meeting, as board members dispersed, Nathan approached Eleanor with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Eleanor, do you have a moment?" She nodded, maintaining professional composure while noticing the physical changes in him: weight loss, a slight pallor, movements more deliberate than his former energetic confidence. "I wanted to thank you," he said simply, "for the card from the boys. It was unexpected. They were concerned when they heard about your health," Eleanor explained. "It was entirely their idea." Nathan absorbed this with visible emotion, surprising Eleanor, who had rarely seen him display genuine feeling. "I've been doing a lot of thinking during recovery," he said after a moment, "about choices and consequences, about what matters when you're facing mortality directly." Eleanor maintained neutral attentiveness, uncertain where this conversation was heading. "I know I have no right to ask," Nathan continued carefully, "but would you consider allowing me to meet them just once, on whatever terms you deem appropriate?" The request landed like a stone in still water, creating ripples of complication Eleanor had long anticipated but hoped to avoid. Nathan's health crisis added a dimension of urgency and potential finality that made simple rejection difficult. "Why now?" she asked directly, echoing her question from months earlier. After 10 years of complete absence, "Because I was wrong," Nathan said simply, the admission so unexpected that Eleanor momentarily doubted her hearing. "Not about everything. Our marriage wasn't viable regardless." but about the boys, about denying my responsibility, about refusing to acknowledge their existence. Eleanor studied him carefully, looking for signs of manipulation or strategic calculation. Instead, she saw what appeared to be genuine reflection, a man confronting his mortality and reassessing the consequences of his choices. "This isn't a decision I can make unilaterally," she said finally. "Michael and Gabriel are old enough to have input on whether they want such a meeting, and if they do, it would need to be carefully structured with clear expectations and boundaries." Nathan nodded acceptance. "Of course, I understand completely." "I need to think about this," Eleanor continued, "and consult with people who understand the psychological implications for the boys. This isn't about your needs or regrets, Nathan. It's about their well-being." "As it should be," he agreed quietly. "I just wanted to put the possibility on the table. The decision is entirely yours and theirs." As Eleanor drove home, mind swirling with the implications of Nathan's request, she recognized the profound complexity of the situation. The man who had once threatened to destroy her if she insisted on connecting him to his sons now sought the very connection he had vehemently rejected. She would need wisdom beyond her own experience to navigate this unexpected development, to determine whether Nathan's apparent change represented genuine transformation or temporary vulnerability, and more importantly, to assess whether any contact would benefit her sons or potentially harm them. The path forward was unclear, but Eleanor's guiding principle remained constant. Michael and Gabriel's well-being would determine every decision, regardless of Nathan's newfound regrets or her own complicated feelings about the past. The family they had built together would face this challenge as they had faced all others, with honesty, open communication, and the resilience they had cultivated through years of choosing connection over bitterness. Whatever came next, Eleanor knew with bone-deep certainty that the three of them would face it together, their bonds strengthened rather than weakened by the absence Nathan had created, and now, perhaps, sought to address. The question of whether to allow that possibility remained to be answered, not by Eleanor alone, but by the family unit she had created from the ashes of Nathan's rejection. A family that had proven, time and again, that true strength emerges not from avoiding life's complexities, but from facing them with courage, compassion, and unwavering commitment to each other's well-being. There are no perfect endings to stories shaped by betrayal, only new beginnings forged in the fire of necessity. Eleanor Rodriguez never set out to build an empire or become a symbol of resilience. She simply refused to vanish when Nathan Blackwood decided she should. With twin boys depending on her and no safety net beneath her, she did what mothers have done since time immemorial. She found strength she never knew existed. The journey cost her innocence, security, and the luxury of trusting easily. It demanded countless nights of exhaustion, fear, and doubt. Yet what emerged from those hardships wasn't merely survival, but transformation. A woman who discovered that her worth was never dependent on someone else's validation. A mother who showed her sons that setbacks can become foundations rather than conclusions. And perhaps most remarkably, a human being who learned that forgiveness isn't about excusing cruelty, but refusing to let it define your future. We all face moments when someone tries to write us out of the story, declares us insignificant, replaceable, unworthy. The truest measure of character isn't whether you're knocked down, it's what you build when you rise again. What would you rebuild if everything you thought defined you suddenly disappeared?